Hello, I'm Dan McDowell, longtime professional broadcaster. Why subscribe to our Patreon podcast? Well, perhaps you support our struggle to get out from under the oppressive thumb of the man. Or, objectively, if you sign up at patreon.com/thedumbzone, you'll get the 2 episodes per week that are available on all podcast platforms, like this one, plus an additional 2 episodes each week that are exclusive to Patreon. So subscribing on Patreon gets you 4 episodes per week. Oh my, what a bargain. Now, on to today's program.
The Dumb Zone. Haralabob. Haralabob. Haralabob.
I never listen, I'm gonna listen. I wanna listen to the Dumb Zone.
Hey guys, happy Tuesday. Show number 111. Show 111.
Make a wish.
What do you make of that?
It's 11:11.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not into that voodoo nonsense.
As a kid, I would always, little kid, try to stay up till 11:11 and couldn't do it. And now I'm hoping to get to bed by 11:11.
What exactly was the impetus behind this? Was there some sort of
Just to see
legend
11:11.
behind it? Just to see it?
Well, you make a wish, and
Because I wasn't allowed to stay up late.
might come true.
There's so many stupid things ingrained into our culture that it's just like, yeah, I'll blow a candle out and make a wish.
Well, we used to not have things to do.
Yeah,
It's
we
gotta
still
be it,
do it
right?
now. I mean, if you have cancer, I understand. There's a Make-A-Wish Foundation. But if you're just some kid who's turning 8, like, make a wish. It's just stupid, if you think about it. All the old witchcrafty type things that we still...
Why won't you let people have hope?
I want them to have hope. I just don't want it to be related to dates and candles.
If it makes a 7-year-old feel better to wish for a new bicycle by blowing out these flames, then just so be it.
Yeah, but he's not going to get it. So then what?
What if he does?
Then he'll believe in God.
Yeah.
And not his parents, who actually have been working 50-hour weeks.
What do you think about teaching your kids about Santa?
I'm a little bit conflicted on it. I talked to TC about this last week, and it's an interesting dynamic because he's been telling Izzy Santa's not real from the day that she could understand him. And once she got old enough to where she understood what he was saying, she was like, nah, okay, I think you're wrong. Like, he tried as hard as he could.
Everybody else is really into it.
Yeah, and she's like, I see him right there. TC's like, that's not real. That's a guy dressed up. And she's like, okay, dude.
Because that was
That's
I was
awesome.
conflicted with that too.
Yeah.
Because, I don't have any harsh memory of it myself, but I just remember people, some people would cry when they found out about Santa, and it's like, well, why purposely lie to your kid? I mean, we did the
Tooth Fairy.
Tooth Fairy because my kid, I think one time, put a note
Oh, yeah.
under there expecting the Tooth Fairy to answer, so I did. I wrote it left-handed so that it would look different than my handwriting.
Okay.
And, she was very skeptical.
I know for me personally, and this is one of the things that, while I appreciate all the help that I get from the It Takes a Village to Raise a Child, one of the things I struggle with the most is just I don't have much control over her inputs at all. And so there's no chance that with my mom, I could get away with being like, Santa is not real. Like, my mom's a 6-month Christmas participator.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just no way I could get away with it. I would like to. If it were up to me, and only me, things would be a lot different. A lot different.
That's interesting.
I mean, that's a difference between your situation moving away and raising your kids and mine. Because for me, I get the help of having 5 other people that will watch our kid, but I also have her coming home and singing songs about Jesus. And I'm like, and that's the other thing. I'm fighting that one though. I'm like, Jesus is, she's talking about heaven a lot now. And I'm like, heaven is in your heart. It's not a real place. There's no place you go. It's in your heart. Like when her hamster died at school, is Monty in heaven now? I'm like, heaven is not a place. Heaven is your memory of him, and he's in your heart. Now that's not going to stick because I'm going to have a wave of other people battling that. Whereas with you didn't have any help with your kids at all.
Yeah.
But you got to really control the narrative, which I lost out of the gate.
Yeah, the only struggle I had is with the lady I married. She had some different ideas about.
That's a lot easier. That's
right. It's
the
only
Matrix is one by one.
Yeah.
Whereas I got.
You sent her off to the in-laws for a week of indoctrination.
Yeah, or even some more than others, but
that's a weird bit because I remember. I think it was I don't know if it was my aunt, not Uncle Gary, but Aunt Terry. The first time I was ever at a Baptist church and saw like a whole body dunked to get baptized, like in the church, like in this giant bathtub or so. I was like,
I've done it twice.
You've done it.
Yeah.
It's done to you.
Yeah.
Twice because they were like, this one didn't stick.
Yeah, definitely. The first one felt like
this is a bad seed.
I think the first one they knew that I was kind of like forced to do it. Like I had no say in the matter at the first one. My mom had done it, and some guy came over to our house, and I was probably like 9 or 10, and he drew us like a photo, or not a photo, he drew us a drawing, and he drew like basically what amounted to like a cliff with a gulf in the middle. So it's a cliff over here, and then down on both sides. So it said like you, and then I think it said heaven, and over here he drew my family. So I'm by myself on one side, my family's over here on the other side, and I think in the pit it said like accept Christ or hell, something like that. It was very clear to me that they were saying, do you want to be with them?
There's no middle ground in this equation. There's no,
and I had no theological underpinning to understand any of this stuff. So I did it that time, and then in probably junior high, I did have like a probably 2-year period of being somewhat like into church. Church camp, VBS.
You weren't against it?
No, I wasn't against it. And in fact, we should talk about this more at length at some time because this is something wholly foreign to you. Church camp is a wild experience. Like, dude, it is, they are coming at you. It is emotional sensory overload.
So you talk about grooming.
Dude, it was crazy.
I was really attempting that.
And they, my brother was there actually for this one, and they had some deal where, older kids, and in my case, older sibling. If you didn't have a sibling, you just found a younger kid. You had to wash their feet while like Christian music is playing.
Jesus.
And I was bawling my eyes out. Like, I'm a bad brother. I'm sorry, I'm a bad big brother. And he's crying. And and then they're like, once they see you crying, they're like, want to get saved? They're like, we got him right now. He's vulnerable. And I'm like, yes.
And so you did it again?
I did it again, yeah.
At church camp?
When I got home. There's nothing.
So wait, the first time they did it at your house?
No. They came to my house and
give you the pitch.
To give me the pitch, and I was like, yeah, sure. I want to be with my family.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah, what 9-year-old in that situation is going to say?
I might have been 10 or 11. I don't know, but I was
whatever.
Very young.
Any little kid under full control of your, parental units. There's no real opportunity to. You've not really even started thinking for yourself too much. That's probably teenage years for sure, right?
Yeah.
So that's weird, man.
Interestingly enough, though, the second time I went, when I went to church camp and I came back and got baptized the second time, while I was very excited about Christ at that point, also I smoked weed there.
At the church camp?
Yeah, and I did not smoke weed again for probably 5 years. Didn't smoke in high school at all, not once.
It's a crazy experience because there's the mix of like hardcore church kids Then there's a middle section of kids that kind of just want to go hang out with their friends for a few days away from parents. And then there's the kids that are sent there that are
Bad
that their
kids.
parents are hoping to get fixed.
Yeah.
And so when you put these three groups together,
it
is
is
an
pretty wild.
incredible time because in the morning and during the day you're like playing capture the flag and you're running around.
Softball.
Yeah,
Little,
and then
little 2-on-2.
and then you swim and then you go listen to church music for 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's a wild time. It's a wild week.
It really is. But yeah, there was an older kid there who played football. I think he was in like 10th or 11th grade. He played football at our high school, and he was badass. And he seemed like Bodie to me. Like he believed in God and everything, but he also like smoked pot. And he was like, to me and my buddy who were there, I brought a guy with me. In fact, I believe that was part of the deal. Is my mom was like, I want you to go, but you can bring a friend and we'll pay for it. And we just ran through the sports leagues because I had a ringer who was not associated with the church at all. They're like, who's this guy? It's not fair. And yeah, the older kid was like, hey, before music tonight, come on down.
And that's where you smoke pot.
Church music in that setting,
Oh my gosh.
pretty amazing.
They got the fog machine, the lights,
It was like the Grammys.
and the God Squad ripping stuff.
Oh,
The
yeah.
first time you ever smoked pot?
Oh yeah, and it was like I said, I didn't again until well into my freshman year of
But
college.
he wasn't a hardcore church guy.
No, but he was spiritual.
Okay,
You know
because
what I'm
I
saying?
know
Like he was.
well, I wouldn't say that, but the kids that went to Catholic school, they partied way harder. Yeah, there's probably somebody in my school partying, but I never. I tried pot once when I was in high school, and it was at my dad's wedding.
Yes.
We kind of drank some wine coolers, but I was pretty much just a big sports nerd. And then once I befriended these other people, one of them, but I'm not going to say now. But once, college age and everything, but I met them. They had gone to the local, Catholic high school, and I would come to find out when they were in high school, they were doing coke. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, I think I remember hearing that about Fort Worth Christian. Like, it might. It's, by no means were they're not. I mean, we were having overdoses at my high school from pills. Mm-hmm. But I remember hearing that, like, man, those kids over at Fort Worth Christian, like, they go hard. Like, I don't remember coke necessarily, but it was like they had money.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
So they would, they could
Because
buy.
you could afford to go to the Catholic high school.
Exactly. Whereas, like, and I never did this, but the kids in my school would just, like, raid their grandma's cancer medicine.
Yeah.
Some of it too
Then die.
is having naive parents.
Yeah,
where you think
Catholic, yeah,
Yeah, the-
Christian parent, yeah,
They're taking care of it.
He could never be doing that. Whereas if you kind of have a little rougher crowd, you're like,
But also, I have a good babysitter. It's their school. It's
Yeah.
the Catholic church, or
Yeah.
it's whatever.
Yeah, but yes, the parents think you're hanging around good kids, and so you have a little bit more freedom. The parents don't really ask because it's like, well, you're all Christian school kids. I'm not going to check in on you.
That's a big part of it. A big part of it.
Well, yeah, if you know you have little Jake running around, you're going to question everything he does.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, and again, this is not something I ever experienced, but I certainly dreamed about it. Is people would hook up. Like, that was a big. It might just be like making out, but that was a big player for the whole week. Is like trying to figure out if there's any girls here that like you. So maybe that's why I started crying. Is I just needed to put on airs, but it was a lot, dude. And then we did like. Did you ever do like? There was one in the winter. I can't remember what it was called, but
Winter was popular for the lock-in.
yeah, that's kind of what we did, and it was at the Embassy. Or no, what's the one right there on Grapevine? Is that an Embassy Suites? On
By
26?
Yeah.
By
yeah.
like Bass Pro Shop?
Yeah.
We had one there, and my only memory of that, really, is that in the middle of like, is it Vespers? Yeah? Like the evening acoustic sessions and stuff.
Okay.
They had us in like a little ballroom, and it's like low light. There's guys up there with acoustic guitars, and I said I had to go to the bathroom, and instead, and I'm probably 13 at this point, I went to the bar to watch Major beat Washington in the Holiday Bowl. And when they found me, they were not happy because I had been gone for about an hour and a half. I'm like, dude,
It's major.
I'm going to rank the figures you're throwing at me right now in order. 2, Christ, 1, major. I'm not out on your guy, but
My guy's dealing right
my
now.
guy is absolutely
There's time.
dealing.
There's a lot of time for everyone, right? All right, we have a cool guest book today. Haralabos. We only need one name for him, right? Haralabos Voulgaris.
Sure.
Well, I think his name is Haralabos.
We're going to find out.
We are going to find out. I've heard Haralabos all my life, or all my life that I've known who he is. I don't think I've known who he is. You know what I'm saying. Anyway,
I got you.
we're going to have him in a few minutes. So, and I have on my run sheet here Jake's Assorted NFL Notes.
That's right.
That's a new feature that we're starting today. So, yeah, let's pause for a second, and we'll be back with Haralabos, we hope.
Evan, they say everything's bigger in Texas, and that includes Jerry Jones' new stadium. What do you think of the new place?
I think the new stadium is absolutely stunning, and for fans who are going to the ball game, they have an opportunity now to tailgate at a brand new stadium and smoke it up and serenade the whole stadium itself. To me, tailgating is a part of game day experience, and what we found is that 42% of the people prefer pork over the other meat. And at tailgate parties, I can understand why, because pork is easy, it's easy to cook, it's simple, and it's affordable. And so going to game day stadium, look for everybody out there to be tailgating, to be using some type of pork meat on their grills.
You're listening to The Dumb Zone.
No puppet.
That's kind of where it goes. So we had to do so. We are recording live to tape a little bit early today. Generally, we get going around noonish. We got going a little before 11 because of the guest I was mentioning is not in this time zone. He is far, far away. The other side of the world, Jake. He is Bob Voulgaris. I'll go with that. First of all, we really appreciate your time. Second of all, I would like to say, so I heard you recently on a different podcast, listening to some different things you've done. The host had said, am I pronouncing your name right? It's Haralabos. And you said, yes, that's right.
Haralabos, but yes.
Okay, because I guess I got to know you. I got to know who you are and hear you and everything with Simmons for years. And he always said Haralabos.
That's my Twitter name. It's kind of a nickname because I go by Bob. So somewhere along the line, Bob and Haralabos turned into Haralabos. I just kind of ran with it. So
okay, Haralabos. I'd like to get that right, but
it doesn't sound like he cares that much.
No, that's there are more important things.
Ways to make Haralabos more complicated, but I guess adding in another name that's very similar to it is another way to make it more complicated. So I decided to roll with it. Works.
So you're in Spain right now. Haralabos, or Bob, is a former professional gambler. He's currently the owner of a Spanish soccer club, and so he's over there right now ruling with his iron fist. You may remember him from the Dallas Mavericks, as he was the director of quantitative research and development. As I understand it, you totally made that title up.
I don't made it up. I was like, I'm not an American, so I think I was cognizant of getting a visa approved as quick and fast as possible. And so I think having a title that makes sense with my expertise, which is quantitative research and development, was part of it. Mark's pretty like, call yourself whatever you want. It's kind of fly by the seat of your pants guy. So I was like, how does this sound? And he was like, sounds good. So I think if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have went something more along the lines of basketball strategy or something, or maybe not had a title at all and just kind of hung out in the background. That probably would have been the sharper move in retrospect. But yeah, quantitative research development, made up title. But pretty accurate in terms of what I was doing, to be perfectly fair.
That's interesting. As you say, you made something up, and it's like what you name yourself, but is it going to be taken seriously by you're saying the visa, as you're trying to get a visa. So we named this, we used to be called the hang zone in our radio era, and now we're the dumb zone. And we find that very difficult to try and book guests or, we're trying to.
When I saw the message and then I saw the name of the thing, I was like, okay, these guys, at least they don't take themselves too seriously.
Okay, so it's not bad to you.
It's interesting, though, because he had to sort of gin up the title for the visa purposes, but I wonder if whenever that title was presented to the old heads on staff, they were like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
To be honest, there was no presentation to the old heads on staff, I don't think. It was kind of, I think a lot of people, possibly they didn't know. There wasn't really a lot of organizational structure, I would say, with the Mavericks. Not, I think Mark maybe would even admit to this. It wasn't super well thought out in that regard. And so when Mark wanted to hire me, because I was working a lot with the coaching staff, I think he wanted me first, before we agreed to any terms, he wanted me first to get vetted by Coach Carlisle. So I met with Coach Carlisle, spent some time with him. And so that was really the only person I really met. I met Donnie for the first time because I was, kind of shadowing Carlisle around, just talking to him, meeting with him. And then he had to go run practice. And so he just deposited me in Donnie's office. So the first time I met Donnie, I got deposited in his office. He started talking to me, got kind of awkward, didn't really know what was going on. So then I left. And then the guy who was his assistant, I think his assistant at the time, a guy named Max, I guess knew who I was and told him who I was. And I guess the gist of the story was Donnie realized I was wealthy in some way. So he called me back in there and tried to sell me a futsal franchise. That's a true story. He started and a Mexican G League franchise. Those are the two things he tried to
hustling. Always.
Yeah, it's just funny. He was always looking for a deal in some way, not in a bad way, but it was kind of funny because I was just like, I'm not here to buy I don't know what futsal is, and I have no interest in owning a Mexican G League franchise. So maybe I'm not the guy for you, but it was pretty entertaining.
Okay, so you didn't actually have to get vetted by Donnie, you're saying?
No, I didn't. I think in fairness to Donnie, I don't think he knew who I was, what I was doing, or why I was there, and so maybe that got us off on the wrong foot right away. To be fair, he was always very nice to me in person, especially the first little while, and then I think based on how things went in terms of the roles of how Mark, because Mark's, it was in my estimation, I think even by his, he's the ultimate decision maker there. So I think once people realized I had Mark's ear as well, I think then things started to change a little bit. But yeah, Donnie was always very nice to me up until the very, very, very end.
It's interesting you mentioned the organizational structure because I guess I don't know how every NBA team works, but for a long time I've thought, obviously Mark is the ultimate decision maker, but I've just thought, I don't really know how this team is run. And even up to today, I know that Michael Finley is involved, but he's not the GM, but they have a GM in Nico Harrison, but he's supposed to be working hand in glove with Jason Kidd. It's all very confusing. Dirk is around somehow involved, but yeah, it's always just seemed like Cuban valued this sort of, we're going to throw a bunch of personalities and intellect into a room and just see what happens.
There's some merit to that. I think especially my experience now at the football club and hiring someone to help me run the sports department who was super detailed, structure oriented. Everyone had a job title, who they reported to, et cetera, corporate structure. That has its benefits. It also has its negatives in some way because it kind of prevents the free flow of ideas, I think. And if you have someone like Mark who wants to be very involved and who deems himself to be the guy who should be making the final decision, I think it can work. Just everyone has to get along. I think that's the key thing. I can't speak to how other teams operate. I know I've interviewed with a couple different teams, and I think it's a lot of times the coach is involved. Sometimes he isn't involved. They're consulted. The one thing I'll say in defense of the Mavericks and any NBA team is, the number one goal of a general manager, in my mind, is his most of them, their goal is to save their job. And so that doesn't necessarily line up with the kind of the goal of what the team is. So they don't have the team in mind. But an owner has the team in mind. So for my football club, we don't have a sporting director, which is the Spanish version or a football version of a GM. I'm the sporting director and I'm making all of the decisions in that regard. And I think it lines up really, really well in that because I'm the custodian of the club. I have the team's long-term best interests. Whereas if you get the coach involved, He's got 1 year left on his contract. Is he really going to want to develop a young player versus signing a veteran? So it makes sense, but yeah, it wasn't super organized, and it definitely didn't contribute to I would say, healthy work environment the way the Mavericks were run. But it wasn't like a frat house either, which I think I've read a couple different people describe it that way or allude to it. It wasn't like that. It was still professional. It just wasn't, it wasn't a Fortune 500 company.
I think the frat house thing came out after that. Who was the guy that had like a condom fall out of his pants?
Sports Illustrated article, Pants DJ.
Okay, that was that before you got there?
Yeah, much before I got. When I got there, Synth was running things, and it was
okay.
My office was actually in the business side because there was no room in the basketball department for my. But I always worked out of the basketball department. The people who worked in my department, the other quants, because there were several of them, they all worked in the on the basketball business side next to the Mark Cuban Company's area.
So he never saw a condom. Never saw a condom on the floor.
Definitely did not. No.
It feels like we've always thought like Cuban is.
But it really is the dumb zone, isn't it? I mean, you're really getting the mix, don't you?
Cuban really is. He's the GM, though. It just feels like that's actually what he does, but he hires some people under him.
I don't think that's unusual. I don't know if that's true or not, but at the end of the day, you had a franchise that's worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $5 billion. Why wouldn't you want the guy who's owns the team and cutting the supermax checks to be the one making the final decisions? I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's not uncommon at all. You might think it is, but it really isn't.
So
in fact, the Luka trade was negotiated by Mark and the owner of the Hawks. They're the ones who finally got the deal done. So, are you telling me the Hawks are also? There's lots of examples of this, I think.
How did your association with Mark Cuban begin?
I don't remember, to be honest. I think email. This predated Twitter, so it was probably email conversation. I worked, and a lot of people don't know this, but I also worked for Mark and the Mavericks when I took a year off gambling. Starting about a month or so before the All-Star break, the year before you guys won the title. So I worked from the pre-All-Star break all the way through to the start of the following NBA season when you guys won the championship in 2011. I was contracted by Mark. So I was doing similar stuff for him then, advising him on players, player trades, etc. Most people don't know that, but that happened. I think I had to start somewhere via email. I think also there was like a couple articles are written about me. And then I think that gave him more like information as to who I was. We met in person a couple times during summer league. For me, I wanted to see if I liked it. At that time, I wasn't financially in a position where I wanted to give up gambling for more than a year. So I went back to gambling because I wasn't going to go work for the Mavericks for a small amount of money. And then by the time I actually started working for the team as an official, non-contracted, but official team employee, my financial situation had changed. And I think also the amount of money he was willing to offer me also was a lot more in my mind substantial, even though it didn't really materially impact my life in any way.
So I've heard you talk about this before, but it seems like you sort of had a healthy symbiotic relationship of respect with Rick.
Yeah, why wouldn't you respect him? He's a great coach and a hard worker, and
yeah,
all he wants to do is win.
He's a difficult guy. in our dealings with
we didn't
him.
have a symbiotic relationship in how I would define a symbiotic relationship, but in his mind, I'm sure it was as symbiotic as it gets. I mean, I think, it's interesting for me looking back. I think I have to look back through the lens of how everyone viewed me. And so I think a lot of people are out for self-preservation. I'm not saying Rick was, but a lot of the people I interacted with in the office were either like, okay, I have to either pretend I'm this guy's friend because it'll help me with my job, or I have to actually try to be his friend because I want to get to know and learn a little bit more about the business of analytics or the approach. And then there were some people who are like, I'm never going to get this. This is outside my lane. If the organization is going in this direction, I'm going to become a lamplighter when electricity becomes about, and I'm just going to be, kind of evolved out. So with Rick, we worked really, really close together. We never really had any issues at all up until the very, very end when I left before, like in March of the year. Everyone thought I was around for the whole year, but I actually just left at that point just because we had a couple instances pop up where I felt like he didn't have my back. But yeah, it was like, Rick's a tactical guy. He's very psychological. his idea of a great conversation is you both argue with each other for an hour and 30 minutes, and then you feel strongly enough about your point that you're fine being in a real kind of, I don't want to say hostile, but like a real, it's a real passionate conversation. And then the next day, if things go well, you repeat the whole process all over again. That's kind of his approach. He's very tactical. He's very sharp, like in the way he conducts himself. And so for me, I appreciated that level of kind of drive to win, which I wanted to do also. And I thought Rick also really respected my ideas. He didn't necessarily agree with everything I said, but he respected the amount of work and detail I went into providing my opinions on things, because I wasn't just spitballing stuff. I was doing, in some cases, lots and lots of research, or in other cases, had ideas that I already had predated when I was building my models to predict outcomes of basketball games. So Rick, in my mind, was someone I enjoyed working with. It also helped me learn how to deal with people in sports better as well, because I've learned that this is very common amongst coaches who have to lead men. They have to have this type of confidence in their beliefs and a way of going about things. So yeah, I had a good relationship with Rick.
Can you give an example of something where he didn't have your back?
After the article came out, and we had like a conversation, this was like maybe a couple of days before he decided to quit the Mavericks. I was like, hey, you're next, bro. Like, you think this kid doesn't like me? Like, it's not really about me. So, you need to figure that shit out. An example was just like, I think, maybe in my mind, he when I approached him with this, he said, no, it wasn't intentional, but it certainly occurred to me that it was intentional, that some of the decisions on who would play or who wouldn't play, the numbers say might be taken as code from the players, like, hey, this isn't my decision. This is foisted upon me by the analytics nerd or whatever. But he never disrespected me in person, and I don't know that was the case, but it definitely occurred to me that it made things easier for him to have some plausible deniability with because the players didn't, people think I had a bad relationship with the players. I didn't have a good relationship or a bad relationship. I just didn't have a relationship. There's some players who I had a friendly relationship with outside of basketball that I was friends with, but for the most part, I never talked to the players about basketball. So I think if you're having to have a tough conversation with someone like Wes Matthews, who's a pretty confident, well-paid veteran NBA player, it could make things easier to say like, hey, it's kind of out of my hands, but, the numbers say that we can't play you. We got to play this guy. We got to play Dodo over you. We got to develop Dodo over you. But, so that I don't know that happened, but it kind of felt to me like, based on my own intuition, that's what might have happened. So
one of those decisions that I think you were pretty heavily involved was the Clippers series decision to start Boban.
Correct.
And the other thing, I think it was the same game in that Game 7 where Batum had been bodying Brunson basically every time he touched the floor that whole series. He seemed just too small to play. And he played 10 minutes in Game 7, scores 2 points. And I feel like at that point, that's when the Mavericks decided we're not going to extend Jalen Brunson, even though they had a little bit of time to do it. So what were your opinions on Brunson at that time? And obviously
my
now...
opinions on Brunson were twofold. I had a funny interaction with Jalen Brunson's father last year at a Lakers-Knicks game where he was eyeballing me from the court, from the bench, like he knew who I was. Jalen knew who I was. I think there was this rumor that was spread by one of the members of the staff, which was kind of true. It was true. I was trying to trade Jalen, but it wasn't because I didn't think he was a good player. It was because for whatever reason they signed this guy to a contract that meant that we didn't have his rights anymore to match. So he wasn't going to he didn't have a classical rookie contract. So we were either going to have to overpay for his services, and not overpay, but pay a lot with the ability where he still might want to leave. We had no leverage, and he was also the only asset the Mavericks had after the KP trade. Yeah, because we didn't have any draft picks we could trade really freely. So my opinion of him wasn't so much long term that he wasn't going to be a good player. Because to be fair, did I think he was going to be this good? Absolutely not. The amount of work he's put in is really, really a testament, I think, to how hard he's worked and what a good professional athlete he was. But yeah, my opinion on him at that time wasn't he's not a good player, he'll never be a good player. My opinion of him was just in this series, he's not really as long as they put Batum on him, we're not getting any advantage here. That was basically and all my communications were via email. So it's very easy for me to go back and look at them and see exactly what I said. And that's basically what it was. Like, this is a matchup where we don't have an advantage on. We don't have an advantage when they go, once they figure out how to go small and play 5 smalls versus us, we're fucked. I said that the previous year when we played them, they didn't figure it out that year, Clippers. They only ran it a few times when they were losing. And then once they got back, they went back to their traditional Zubac lineup or big lineup. The next year, the conversation was, how do we, at some point when we were up 2-0, I was still sending, communicating with Rick, like, hey, at some point they're going to figure this shit out and they're going to go small. What is our plan? And our plan was, well, when they do it, we'll figure it out. I was like, well, it's better to do it when we're up 2-0 than when it's 2-2 or when it's 3-2. You know what I mean? So that was kind of that. And so the Boban situation was, one of the rules was we couldn't not start KP. That was like a rule for whatever reason. I don't know why that was a rule, but it was a rule. But the lineup, when they went small, KP's still coming off an injury. He has to guard a small, he has to guard in space. It's very difficult for us to defend, and we weren't gaining anything offensively at the other end because he wasn't able to post up those smaller players in an efficient manner, and it was clogging the lane. So given the notion that we had to start him, the other option was, okay, let's not allow them to go small by putting in Boban, which forces their hand. Now we can get some players in foul trouble. We can get some offensive rebounds. They had nobody who could guard Boban. Like, Boban was, people think, oh, what a bananas idea, but it worked. And the whole idea was it was going to be something that would steal us a game at some point. That was kind of the idea. It wasn't going to work long term, and it wasn't a Game 7 thing. We didn't do it in Game 7. If you remember when we did it. So we did it earlier than that. The Boban move was earlier. So, and it worked. It bought us a game. We went zone, so we didn't have to really worry about the defense. We lived with their above the break threes, hoped they got a little bit unlucky from 3, and then got them in foul trouble on the other end. So it kind of worked. Unfortunately, it didn't work in Game 7 because at that point we were out of moves. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fascinating because I remember as a fan, fans were like, well, they're just trying to throw something against the wall. But there's actual well-thought-out reasoning behind starting Boban.
I have the emails from it's funny, I have like the video clips from the year before when we put Boban in there in the bubble in the playoff series, and he just put people under the basket. I mean, there was like a couple clips of Marcus Morris trying to guard him. It was effective. Funny anecdote to that is, like, last year, about a year ago this time, I'm at some like LA celebrity's birthday party in LA, and I see Ty Lue there, and I'm like, I don't really, I don't know Ty Lue, but I knew Kenny Atkinson, who was on the staff at the time, and we had talked about this. And so I was like, I'm gonna go talk to Ty Lue. I'm introduce myself. So I introduced myself to Ty Lue. I was like, hey, how's the guy who worked for the Mavericks? And he's like, oh, you're the gambler. And I was like, yeah. He's like, was that you who wanted to do Boban? I was like, yeah. I was like, we fucking hated that. When you guys did that, we were like, fuck, that was good, man. It was actually a cool moment. So.
Yeah, playoff series are fun like that in the moves. You going back though a couple minutes ago, you mentioned something that I don't think really gets brought up enough, which is the initial Jalen Brunson contract is the real culprit.
That's really all there is to it. I mean, people talk about, oh, we didn't do this, we didn't do that, but like, why are you trying to save? You get an extra year at a cheaper rate when you sign to that 4-year whatever contract, but you don't have the restricted free agency rights. So, I mean, I don't know who negotiated that contract. I don't think it's fair to blame Donnie on that. I don't, just because, I mean, it could, I don't know, right? So he's the GM, but if it's a bad idea, let's say it's not his idea, then he should try to convince the coach or the owner not to do it. Part of your job as a general manager is to go to bat for bad ideas that talk. Like, Mark has a lot of ideas. My job was to kind of like give my opinion on his ideas, and if there were some that were really, really ones that I disagreed with strongly, really be confident enough to not care if I was wrong at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people were acting out of self-preservation. So I don't know whose idea that was, but it was definitely a bad idea.
I've always heard, and I don't know if this is true, that it was about just saving a little bit more on the cap so they could pursue Giannis in another Maverick pipe dream like they did with Dwight Howard many years ago.
At the end of the day, if Giannis wants to, Miami has proven this time and time again, if a star wants to come to you, no matter how much cap room you have, you can make things happen. So possibly, but it was also explained to me that you get an extra year of maybe it's a Giannis thing, but it's also, you get an extra year of lower salary because it's 4 years versus 3 years, whereas your fourth year is higher. But yeah, you lose. It's like in a gambling term that's called a negative free roll, where like if this player ends up, it's a small investment, the option of him becoming a superstar, and now now you're paying like the amount you're paying more versus the amount saving. Yeah, it was a bad move. That was the hardest thing. And so for me, it was less about whether he was good enough to play in the Clippers series. That's not really relevant to his long-term future with the club. The other part is his contract kind of aligns with Luka's in some ways. So like, how much cap space do you have if you do sign him to an extension? So but to your point, there's less to do with the Nico or whoever, fucking up the extension earlier in the year, and more to do with the fact that he was on this ridiculous contract where he was going to become an unrestricted free agent versus a restricted free agent.
So the Porzingis trade happened 4 months into your tenure?
Correct.
So what was your involvement with that?
Zero involvement in that trade, which is to say that my theory on that, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is kind of what I talked to before, is, Mark had asked me to rank who I thought were some of the best restricted free agents earlier on in the year. So I just, had KP was on the list. Like, here's a guy I would look at as a restricted free agent, thinking I'm going to have another year's worth of data to really evaluate him. I didn't realize it was, hey, these are the guys we're going to go for. So it wasn't, I had zero involvement in the trade. Mark, I think, had sent me a message. And this is the only trade that I didn't really have any involvement in. And I think that this was something that wasn't Mark's idea. I think this is a narrative that I've asked about, but I think it's like, part of it is what I talked about earlier. A GM's job is to save his job. And so if you're a GM and you have this new guy who's around, who's really close with the coaching staff, really close with the owner, what can I do what kind of splash can I make here? So I think the KP trade was that. I think it was Mark obviously was on board for sure, but I received the message from Mark, we might be doing something. I think you're going to like it. Can you tell me what it is? No, I'm stupidstitious is what he said. So I didn't know. Now, would I have vetoed the trade or said no? I don't have any idea. I certainly wouldn't have given up picks. The way I understood it, the conversations were going, I had talked about absorbing Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee's contracts for picks, because that was the year KD and Kyrie were going to be free agents. And so the Knicks were actively trying to get cap space. So our conversation somehow went from, I think it was DeAndre Jordan or Wes Matthews or something like this in a swap. I can't remember exactly, for Tim Hardaway Jr., who I liked at the time. I thought he was a decent valued player. And in exchange for getting some kind of compensation from them, absorbing salaries and giving them, that's kind of where it started. And I think it ended up with Porzingis somehow. But yeah, I had no involvement in the trade, which isn't to say then when the trade was explained to me and they told me picks were involved, my initial reaction was, great, what picks did we get? It's a true story. And then when I was told that we gave up picks, I was like, oh. And then, of course, you don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, what a stupid idea. Why did we do this? Da, da, da. Like, everyone was talking about, like, Don, this is how Donnie does. This is what he does. He's a deal maker. This is his expertise. This is what he's good at. This is why we need him, etc. So, I was excited at the possibility, but it wasn't, I've said this before, you don't align a superstar, like a future superstar, like rookie, like Luka in his rookie contract. You don't even know what you have yet. Why are you in a rush to pair someone with him for the next, that you're going to have to max out? Yeah. You have to sign him in free agency. You're similar to the same thing I talked about with Halliburton and Siakam. It's like, what is your rush? One guy is much older than the other guy. They don't really align. And you don't even really know what you have yet. So my belief was, we don't have to win right now. We can just kind of like chill out, build a team, see where we're at. And then we ended up making like a franchise altering decision, but hey, not my team, wasn't really my thing. So you just kind of be a good team player and try to make the best of it. And
then once you acquire him, having given up so much, you had to sign him, right? There's no.
Yeah, of course. The idea you were never going to, same thing with Kyrie, right? You're never going to give up assets unless you're pretty confident the player is going to re-sign. And the difference in Kyrie was unrestricted, but not the only teams that had money to offer him weren't going to be interested in him. whereas KP was unrestricted. So like the idea that KP was going to opt out of his contract, nobody in the history of the NBA has opted out of that contract. Same thing, everyone was panicking when the article about me came out about Luka. Oh, Luka's so upset that Donnie, you know, Mark Spears went on ESPN breathlessly, almost in tears, talking about how Luka's going to hold a press conference, which was already scheduled ahead of time because it was an Olympic Slovenian press conference. But that was something that was spun by his camp so yeah, no, you have to re-sign the guy. Otherwise, what are you doing here? And it wasn't even a rental because KP wasn't even healthy. So you didn't even get a half-year rental. He didn't play. So
something else you mentioned in there that
it's like a deposition, by the way, Dan. I'm looking forward to a conversation, not a deposition. I mean, what's happening here?
This is a deposition?
No,
we're fascinated by the behind-the-scenes stuff, and I got to think you were as well once you first got in there and see how everything is working. And
I think the most interesting thing about it is that most people who leave a job in the NBA desperately want another job in the NBA.
I turned down 2 jobs.
So that's the thing, is they're not going to say shit because they're not going to burn a bridge. You're like, I don't need this, so why not?
I think for me, like my you know, I think I'm much more. To me, you're right. I think also like maybe the way I handled it post Cato article was maybe not the best. If looking back, I would have handled it a little bit because I honestly really didn't care about what was written in the article. Like to me, it was nonsense. What I cared about was the organization's lack of response to correct the actual narrative of what happened. You know, keep in mind, everyone knew about the Donnie Nelson, Jason Luton thing at that point. Keep that in mind.
That kind of just went away.
Still pending, as far as I'm concerned. They have, as far as I understand it, that the lawsuit hasn't gone away, it hasn't been settled. But so understand that is in the background. Everyone knows this. They can't talk about it because everyone's still trying to protect Jason, and rightfully so. And also there's a pending lawsuit, so they have to be very careful. But also remember, in my mind, there was something else that happened with the Mavericks, which was the Tony Ronzoni situation in the hotel room in Vegas, and they had an immediate PR response for that. Mark's idea of a PR response for me, which is what bothered me, and I told Mark this afterwards. Now we're like totally cool, but my annoyance was that Mark's PR response was to do like the Streisand effect, which is to retweet retweet the article with the word bullshit. And it's like, okay, now you've just given it 3.5 more, however many followers you have on Twitter, more visibility. Not that it needed more visibility after Tim Cato went on his media whore tour of podcasts over and over and over again. But yeah, so that was like my issue was that. And people also don't know my personality. I think I'm this guy who's like difficult, and I'm an easygoing, don't what other people think of me doesn't really bother me. I care about the people I care about. So this wasn't really impacting my life negatively. It was just kind of like, oh, I thought you had my back. I gave you 3 years of my time and you paid me some amount of money. The money doesn't mean anything to me. I did this because I believed in the vision you sold me. And now where are you backing me on this? And I think, Mark's just in a different stratosphere in terms of wealth and fame, that I don't think he's ever really had anyone talk to him the way I talked to him in that regard. Like where the stuff I said to him after when I was quitting was like, yo, bro, like I don't want to be here anymore because these types of things are important to me. And so, but yeah, to answer your initial question, which I don't remember what it was, but it was something along the lines of, yeah, I didn't really care. I got offered other jobs. I would never work in the NBA again because at the end of the day, not being able to make a final decision really weighed on me a little bit. Like if I'm doing all this work and I'm dependent on some guy who's like, I like this guy better. Why? He's intangibles. That's not how I operate. So it was just a difficult situation. So yeah, I maybe I shared more than I should have, but it's just kind of my nature in some ways.
You wouldn't take a run a franchise? You're the GM?
Absolutely. Have you seen what these people look like after 5 years of running an NBA franchise? It's like becoming a president. They got 2 phones to 1 ear. No, absolutely.
Well, you can do it your way. You don't have to do it the way they're doing it.
But you still don't have the absolute. I mean, what is the goal here? Your goal is to give up your. I don't know. People seem like my life is pretty good. I don't need to be a slave to the NBA draft. It's a lot of work, and the guys who do it well, really, really, really are willing to sacrifice a lot of well-being. And so for me, it was like, oh, I can kind of dip in and out. People think I was around Dallas all the time. Like, oh, I was going to Mexico, coming back with a tan. Like that probably didn't endear me to some of the staff. I was always working, but I had the freedom to work wherever I wanted to work. So no, I wouldn't. To be a GM, you have to be there all the time. I wouldn't want to do that. It just wasn't. Maybe at some point I thought it'd be interesting, but once I saw the reality of it, how the sausage was made, I was like, nah, that's not for me.
So the move then is to just go buy a team in a Spanish soccer league. Yeah,
or an NBA team. I'm not rich enough. The NBA teams got more and more expensive along the way. So yeah, and I also, I studied basketball for 20 years. Basketball got a little boring to me after. Basketball, in my opinion, is kind of solved. You need a top 5 talent to win, and you basically spread the court and shoot a lot of threes. The math is pretty simple. Soccer is a little more intricate and a little more exciting to me because of that.
That's what I was going to say. Is what's your background with soccer or analytics or strategy?
Like anything, you collect enough data. There's a wealth of data available in football, soccer. We call it football over here. So building models, trying to predict outcomes of games, trying to predict what a player's worth. If you can give me the 11 players who are starting for each team, if I can predict the outcome better than the Vegas odds or here in the European sportsbook odds, then that tells me I'm onto something. It tells me I understand players. So that was kind of the impetus of it. During COVID, it was the first sport to start up again. So I became more interested in it then. We were already building models. I loved the idea of relegation and promotion. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but
sure.
Like the Detroit Pistons would be in the fucking 4th division of football somewhere now instead of the top division. In the NBA, failure is rewarded with draft picks. Here, it's a death sentence for some clubs, so that's exciting. So yeah, we just have like a different approach over here in terms of like we're a data-driven organization. We try to lean into our what we know, which is analytics and strategy and modeling. We identified our coach that way, the new coach we hired. So that was kind of the impetus for it, just something new. I like Europe. I spent most of the summers in Europe anyway. So even back then, even during free agency, during the Mavericks one year, I was in Europe, basically in Greece trying to help Mark out then. So that was kind of the impetus for it.
Even in the second division, I guess, like, do the players over there, do you have tracking data?
Yeah, we don't have, so we're in the third, just
okay.
To be clear.
Sorry.
Hopefully we'll be in the second. We're in first place right now, or tied for first. So we came close last year we lost the last game of the season 1-0. Actually 2-1. We were up 1-0 at halftime. We have, in the Liga 2, the second division, there is tracking. So there's full tracking provided by the league. In our league, we have, StatsBomb does like tracking with, human track data. And then there's something called Skill Corner, which uses the broadcast feed to provide data very similar to Second Spectrum, although not quite as effective because it uses the cameras from the broadcast. There's a lot of data though, a lot of data.
So how were you received as far as do you speak Spanish?
I don't speak Spanish. I'm learning, but it's going slow, and I found that I really enjoy the way I communicate in English. So until I get to a level where I can be nearly as let's say eloquent or efficient in my speech, I'm avoiding speaking in Spanish, but I can understand what most people say, and I can string together some sentences, but I don't come across very intelligent when I try to speak Spanish.
I only ask that because obviously we know the old trope for every sport in America when it comes to numbers and analytics, and we're going to do things a little bit differently because of this, which almost always end up being correct. How it's received by, I don't know much about European soccer. I know analytics are a huge part of it, but I don't know necessarily how the players react to it.
Players are great. The difference between football players and NBA players is pretty massive. I think there's a real deferential culture here. And so we've never, ever had a situation where we've explained to a player why, so this year, to be clear, I have a coach that I identified as like a top level coach, convinced him to leave the top division in Holland to come down here and help us. And so I had more impact on how the Mavericks played basketball strategy wise and game plan wise than I do with the team I own, because what I've realized is I trust this guy to do his job, and I let him do his job, and I don't fuck with him. I try to sign all the players that I like with his input, but I let the coach have free reign. So, but last year it wasn't like that. Last year we kind of thought we could coach some coaches up. We could hire a coach maybe he wasn't as good and give him the right analytical information. We realized that didn't work because at the end of the day, these players are like wolves. So if they can sense some weakness in you, and then you don't really believe in what you're saying, but you're kind of what the owner is saying, it can cause some issues. So we had a little bit of that last year, but not a lot. The players are great though. If you can identify something as simple as shoot less long twos, take more threes in soccer, and explain to a player, there are some things like that. They've all been pretty well receptive to it. Like high crosses are a good example. They're a pretty low efficient thing you do. So you want to cross low or you want to cut back in versus crossing the ball high. So we had a couple players who were crossing a lot. We kind of weaned that out of our approach. But yeah, it's been good.
Seems like a lot of fun.
Players are great. What's that?
I said it seems like a lot of fun. Like you've arrived at a point. It's like this is what I wanted to do when I was a kid. In every
it's like
video,
real life football, man. Real life football manager in some ways. It's
yeah,
kind of fun.
Super cool.
I love the whole, like you said, the relegation, the draft pick thing. Do you find it really weird that European soccer, we're a capitalist society and we hate, politically it's like, oh, we hate socialism, which is what
NBA is like the least capital.
Yeah, that's what all of our sports leagues are socialism, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like a commie socialist red, but it is really, when you think about it, it's the revenue is shared fairly equally. Obviously, you have your individual TV contracts that a team can sign, but BRI is kind of spread out between the players and then you can be as inept as you want running your team. I look at the way Donald Sterling ran his team for years. This is a joke. How is this rewarded? It didn't matter because no matter how shitty he ran his team, he was also shitty. They're also shitty at drafting players. But like the Pistons, all the teams that were, I had to like game plan. The Mavs got in trouble last year for tanking, and really they didn't get in trouble for tanking. They got in trouble for talking about tanking. Everyone was always tanking. They just weren't talking about it. Hinkie got booted from the league for being honest about his approach. So it's kind of like, in some ways the American sports are kind of fraudulent in that regard because you can't be too honest and everyone kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudges plays the game. Here it's like, when I bought this team, there was like a big fear that if we didn't get promoted, that the team would disappear because financially it's not a moneymaker right now. It's losing money. But we have, my plan is to get into a higher league. And then the other part that's exciting is you can invest in players. You can sign a player for a small amount and sell them for a higher amount. So that's like our business strategy in terms of to make the team competitive in the top league. So football has its downsides too. Like we're never going to be able to compete with Real Madrid, who can, their max salary their salary cap is like around 400 million, let's say. Whereas competitors in their league are like some of them are at 40 million just because Real Madrid's revenues are so high. And let's say like an Osasuna's revenues aren't as high, to use an example. So, or Almira. So there are some disadvantages to it as well, but it's more exciting to me. It's different. It's more exciting to me. It's more, and just the gambling aspect of investing in a lower level team and bringing them up is a real fun story. There isn't anything like that in American sports.
Do you think that the international soccer community is going to be pretty fired up to come to Dallas
for the World Cup stuff?
Yeah.
More so probably than they were to go to Qatar or Qatar, depending on how you want to pronounce it.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Everyone around here, like Jerry Jones and for some reason, like Emmitt Smith, were at a press conference yesterday where they were certain they were getting the final, and then they didn't.
New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey.
Yeah, and it was hilarious. But
big story here in Spain. A lot of people were excited to go to Dallas, and now they're finding out they're going to New Jersey. So.
I just can't imagine your average European citizen, if we just had limited it to Europe, they're going to come to Dallas and be like, what is this? Like, what is this city?
I think I've already said enough bad things about the city of Dallas, and it's not the city of Dallas. It's just I didn't enjoy my time there just because of where I chose to live. It was my own choice. But Dallas isn't so bad. I don't know. Yeah, it's different.
Stop it.
No, it really wasn't. Look, for me, like I was choosing between like Monaco, Mexico, south of France, Greece. Yeah, if you're throwing Dallas in that mix, it's not holding up to it.
No, it's never going to get promoted. It
No,
cannot
but if
be.
you're comparing it to like Nebraska or something, I don't mean to offend the people from Nebraska, but if you're Sioux City or whatever, yeah, it's not a bad spot, you know.
So I've never been over in Europe. I'm going to France in about a month to visit my daughter who is studying there for this semester.
Where about?
She's in Paris. She's actually in her apartment is like 2 blocks from the Eiffel Tower.
That's a good arrondissement. That's a good area.
So,
not bad at all.
From what I understand, you are an expert at avoiding jet lag.
I'm not an expert. There's the people type in the CIA hack for jet lag. That's what I read this article on it, and I've been doing it, and it works really, really well. But yeah, you basically starve yourself for 24 to 36 hours before your flight. Take your first meal at breakfast time of wherever you're arriving. So if you're on a plane, I go back and forth a lot to Mexico or even like sometimes to the US from Spain direct with my doodle. And neither one of us have suffered from jet lag in the last 3 years by applying this approach. It works quite well. Starve yourself, take your first meal at breakfast time, and then immediately acclimate yourself to the rhythm of the sun in the place you're staying at. So it helps if you're near the sun. That definitely helps.
Your doodle.
My doodle. I don't know where he is. He's got sick last night. 2 nights ago, he got sick. He got some kind of food poisoning or something. So he's not his usual doodle self today. He's
prominent on social media.
And you're claiming that you've also solved his jet lag.
Dogs don't get jet lag. I figured this out. When I go from Spain last trip I took was from Spain to LA for a few days, and we flew out immediately after our Copa match. So we it's ideal if you can fly out at 10 p.m. because then your dog, because this dog's got to be on this plane for 12 hours. So it's nice if you leave at night. I work it around his time. So we sleep on the plane. We get on the plane at 10, we sleep. We arrive in America, it's also 10 p.m. So it's like, okay, this is kind of weird. Now we go back to sleep. And then we wake up the next morning and we're good. Never have any jet lag. And yeah, he's never had any jet lag, never had any accidents on the plane. He's a one-of-a-kind world traveler.
That's nice.
I wish I would have known that for the... now that I'm probably done traveling internationally. It's the worst move. I was telling Dan yesterday is when you get to where you want to go and you just go to sleep.
No, I had some people, you probably heard that in the podcast I did with my friend Liv and Igor. Like they were on my boat at the time, and the boat has like blackout. You're in the middle of the ocean, so it's like, how could you have jet lag? Just get up at 8 a.m, jump in the water. But they use the blackout blinds, which really make the room black. And so yeah, they would sleep. They went and slept. They slept till 6 p.m. the next day, and they're like, "Oh, we can't beat this jet lag." It's like, yeah, because you're awake now when the sun is down. Like you should be getting up when the sun comes up. So yeah. But also the plane stuff is interesting because you can't be eating on the plane. If you start eating on the plane when you first sit down and start taking your meals, your body has an internal clock based on your feeding schedule too, and that's probably why the doodle also doesn't suffer jet lag because he's not eating. He only really knows when he's eating. So
you want to make yourself hungrier for that meal, like you said, at 8 a.m. or whatever.
Correct. Yeah, that's your first window that you're eating, and so your body attunes itself to that, and then it anticipates your next meal around dinner time. So that would be my recommendation.
Where's your head at on crypto? Still all in?
What?
Still all in?
I've been all in crypto for a long time. I wish I could say that I was a little bit more aggressive selling some of the tops because I do believe in the cycles, the general cycle. But yeah, I think this is about, if you're still negative crypto now, there's probably something wrong with you, in my opinion. Like, this is about as bullish an environment for crypto as there's ever been. You have all of the fraudulent people have been washed out. You have the CEO of BlackRock on CNBC pumping your bags, talking about the ETF. This is like the largest wealth management and financial company in the world. The ETF being passed also means that the likelihood of it being banned is near zero because the lobbying situation has changed. So yeah, I think it's not crypto because there's a lot of scams in crypto. Bitcoin isn't a scam because it's not crypto. It's its own coin that's decentralized and there's no authority on it. But yeah, there's always going to be scams, just like any type of financial instrument. There's going to be scams. But as long as you're in the right types of crypto, I think it's a pretty good time to start scaling in. I think there's always a risk with it, and I think if you can stomach the volatility, you can kind of do well. I got RC into crypto, by the way, Bitcoin, during the last bull run.
Really?
and he was like, he was like, he had to sell because he couldn't handle the swings. The volatility just got to him, and he was checking the price too often, so he had to sell it all. But he made money. He got in. I told both him and Mark around, I think it was just before MicroStrategy was doing its bond offering. I don't know how much you guys follow crypto, but it was a pretty big event where they had to file with the SEC to announce that they're going to buy like $1 billion or $1.5 billion worth of crypto. So you could actually front run them. They weren't allowed to buy. They had to announce that they were going to buy, then they had to buy on that date. So I was like, this is about as close to a sure thing as there ever is in life. You know, even if you only want to sell afterwards, but they bought, and then later on Tesla bought, and then it was the whole GameStop kind of people sitting around their house doing nothing with stimulus money. So yeah, RC was like sweating the price of crypto like every day for a minute. And then he could, here's a guy who's like about as passionate and as hardworking as it gets. But also is like, pretty strung pretty high in some cases. Yeah. So like, I don't know if crypto was the right thing for me. When the price goes down 30%, I'm just like, oh, okay, no big deal. Him, it was like, I think it was negatively impacting his day to day. So but yeah, he got in. I got him into it for sure.
I got a couple other things that I just thought, here's a guy that might have an opinion on cryogenics.
I don't have an opinion on cryogenics.
Okay, I thought maybe you would. For some reason.
I don't mind talking. I don't mind. Ask me whatever you guys want. I'm not trying to get away from you, but I don't have an opinion on cryogenics.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm just, like I said, I'm fishing out there. It just seemed like, in listening to you talk a lot, it just felt like you're a guy who is analyzing everything. And might this have...
I think I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I don't know anything about cryogenics.
It's good for you. I know that.
I'm not looking to, I feel like my life's had a pretty good run. I'd like to live as long as possible. The idea of living forever doesn't appeal to me. So I feel like I'll accept it when it happens, and, as long as maximize every moment of my life, but I'm not trying to be like that Brian Johnson guy who's trying to like reverse age himself. Like at some point you have to just accept the fact that it's part of the natural rhythm of life, that it's going to end at some point. So appreciate every moment while you have it.
Now you sound like an old school coach who's telling me that, this is just the way it's done, and you can't change things.
One thing I don't ascribe to is coach speak. That was always my pet peeve in the NBA, was coach speak. This type of language, this codified language to explain things that can't be explained using words that, sound good. But no, I'm not a coach speak guy. Like in the real world, Dan.
Did you read Moneyball?
Did I read Moneyball?
You're familiar with Moneyball, right?
Yeah, no, of course. No, I read Moneyball. I read Moneyball when it first came out. I was a big fan of Michael Lewis till he got paid to write a book about Sam Bankman-Fried. That was a complete
that was a bad look. Yeah.
It was, a lot of people really, got a bad look there. But I read Moneyball. I thought it was decent. I think it's interesting I think a lot of the stuff that was written about wasn't necessarily super accurate, just because it wasn't like they really solved baseball in that regard, but it was, it was a decent story for sure.
Yeah. I just grew up a baseball nerd, and I love learning that everything I've been thinking is wrong. And a lot of your history seems to be with running into people who don't love learning that. And it's just like I never thought about it before I heard you say, we should try to, sometimes you look at other, okay, if you're making a trade in the NBA, I would think it's just about the players. But sometimes maybe look at the other team's GMs and who is looking to make a big splash because they got to save their job.
And agents.
Or who's a new owner, like the Suns
that's
with
one
KD.
That a lot of people talk about. Yeah. That's definitely one that I think is a in poker, there's always like, we call it like whale hunting, or like looking for fish. Yeah. So KYC, know your customer. So identifying the weak spot at the table, like there's that, not Moneyball, but there's a movie Rounders, where like if you can't spot the weak player at the table, it's you. So that's kind of the philosophy. I grew up, people think I came from money or came from whatever. Like I grew up having to like gamble, and not having to, but I chose to. And so for me, these types of things were always like, solving these puzzles were always important to me because it's fun, but also because it was financially rewarding. So yeah, I think that's something maybe that could be fun about being a general manager in some way, but also can be, you know, a little bit difficult. But saving your job thing, I think, is something that's really, really, because you see it not just in basketball, but I think it's true amongst all sports. It's like, what can I do here to, you know, handcuff my franchise is maybe the result, but hey, maybe I can just, you know, run it back and create a splash. I didn't experience that as an owner of the team, but I definitely remember in the summertime, everyone was clamoring for us to sign a striker. And we had already signed one last winter, which was also the people almost revolted over when we made this move in the summer. We had our leading goal scorer of the team at the time, our striker. We let go to our number one rival because we needed a spot to sign another player who'd only scored 2 goals that year, but who our numbers said was like very, very good. So we signed this player, Jesus de Miguel, let go our leading goal scorer, our leading striker. Our fans were like in uproar. It was like a revolt. It would be like trading, not like trading Luka, but it'd be somewhat like trading Luka, you know, for this town. And so now fast forward a year later, the guy we traded for is leading the league in goals by a big number. The guy we got rid of has only scored 2 goals since. So, but my point is that around the summertime, everyone was clamoring for me to sign a striker. And, you know, it almost occurred to me at that point, like, okay, we already have a striker. It's this guy, Jesus de Miguel. But I almost signed one just to shut people up, you know. And now imagine if I didn't own the team. If I was a general manager, I probably would have went out and signed one because I would have wanted everyone to see what a good job I was doing. It's also easier just to make the safe choice and go along with consensus, because when stuff doesn't go right, you can kind of be like, well, you know, everyone else agreed with me. It wasn't an outside the box thing. Whereas for me, it's okay to make, you know, to take risks and make, you know, big gambles and hope they pay off. So
with your team, are you not there's always this performative thing in sports where we have to act really pissed if you lose. And, you know, we have to walk on eggshell. We used to take trips with the Dallas Stars, and going on their team bus after a loss, you couldn't smile. You got to keep your head down. You couldn't make a peep, and it was
they always lose like 35% of their games.
Yeah, it was so illogical to me.
I had a situation like that my first year with the Mavericks. One of the assistants on the bus or on the plane, was like, you know, they're all reviewing film. You know, the last thing I want to do after we lose a game is to watch more film, because I feel like I want to have like a clear mind to watch it. I don't want to be upset. Not that I was upset, but anyways, I was like reading a book or something, and one of the coaches got upset with me. One of the assistants, not Rick, but one of the assistants got mad at me, and they were just like in front of the other coaches, and we're like, you know, it doesn't seem like these losses bother you. Like, you know, like where's your, you know, what the fuck? Like, this isn't a joke to us. Like, we're doing this because we need to. We're not here. You know, I think he was offended by, or maybe he didn't understand. It was like very, very early on in maybe my first road trip I ever took with the team. And my response was like, if I thought, you know, acting like a child because we lost would help us win games, then I'd start throwing shit. But I don't see how it helps with a better decision. Did not endear me to to some of the people on the team, I would say. That was one of the moments. But it's just true. Like, what is it? How does it help you? How does it help me make? I always like it's performative. Like you said, it's performative. Like, oh man, break something, throw a trash can across the room. Like, that's not me. I also don't really. I've never been someone who really expresses my emotions negatively like that, because I just feel like it doesn't serve me, and also it's just not part of who I am. So,
and
I'm not a robot.
Is that part of how your soccer team is too now? Is that a change?
No, it's bro. Everyone here is very passionate. Like, here, it's different. It's like one of the, you know, the people here have been amazing. Like the reception I have as the president of the team is like top level. I mean, it's like I if I wanted to, I could sit there and take 1,000 selfies and never leave, because everyone wants to take my photo with me or my dog or whatever. They love me for whatever reason, because we were doing a good job and we're in first. But here the people are very passionate. So, and you know, the current coach we have now, he's not Spanish, he's Dutch, but he's also like a very passionate guy. Like, you know, it's how whatever works for people is fine. My team doesn't know. My team definitely shows emotion. That's just who they are. They're at, you know, it's part of the culture here too. We have a lot of Spanish people. Spanish people are just a little bit more, I would say, more geared towards that, versus like maybe like an Icelandic person or a Nordic person might be a little more reserved. It's just part of it is cultural, I think, in some ways. And the fans are I say this in the nicest possible way, are batshit. Like they live and like die with this team. So it's awesome to see when we're winning, and it's not so fun to see when we're losing. So hopefully we just don't lose and we're good to go.
I got one more thing, and I know we've kept you for so long, and I can't thank you enough. But like when you, whether it's with the Mavs or maybe in the old days of looking at poker forums, we got a little of this when we were in our recent lawsuit situation. And then a lot of people with their opinions, oh, this is what's happening, or this is what's going to happen. Like, it was comical to read, and our lawyers, our attorneys, found this Reddit page, and they loved reading it because they're, oh, these lawyers are idiots. They don't know what they're doing. And they loved it. How about you know, when you know what's going on behind the scenes somewhere, do you look at the fan forums or what people are saying,
or even Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter even.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm a Twitter. Some people would the kind description would be power user. The not so kind description would be like, you know, addict in some ways. It's like my brain is wired now to get information fucking in 256 word bits or whatever. So yeah, I read the stuff. I try not to, you know, I'll say this, like I think, and this isn't to like sound whatever, but I think like someone else could have really been damaged by that Cato piece and the stuff that was said about me, because there's a lot, not what Tim wrote, because Tim didn't really say anything super negative about me, although he did, but it wasn't like mean spirited. Yeah, he was just trying to write what he thought was the truth. But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to read stuff and be impacted by it in some way. I think like someone else might have had like a really, really hard time. Like imagine I did need a job in the NBA, or I did need to earn a living somehow. Now my you know, a friend of mine who was like, oh, your Q score is so low right now. You got to raise your Q score because people don't think of you positively, you know? But it's kind of, for me, it's more like kind of, you know, maybe there's a part of me that is maybe still somewhat kind of, I would say, you know, it's a negative aspect where I like to, I don't know, it's not clapping back, but it's like giving more, like today, just before I came on the show, like there's this idea of like, oh my God, Bob drafted Josh Green instead of whoever it was they pretended that we were going to draft if it wasn't for me. But what they don't realize, and this is the God's honest truth, that if I wasn't around, you probably would have had Wendell Carter Jr. instead of Luka Doncic. You know, Mark talked about this on All the Smoke podcast. Our analytics guys loved Luka. Who's the analytics guy? There was no analytics department aside from one person and me. I can promise you that one person wasn't going out on a limb for Luka just because he didn't have that type of relationship with Mark. And it's also tough to go out on a limb when, you know, you need the job and you know, like, I'm sure he did some, maybe like Luka, maybe didn't. I don't know. All I know is I was the only one, I only talked to Mark, and I was pushing very, very heavily to make this deal. And Mark will say that the reason he did the deal was because I pushed really, really heavily. So, you know, correcting that narrative is somewhat fun to me, because these Luka fans are like out of their fucking mind, because they think A, I ruined the team, B, Luka hated me. And so I almost chased away Luka too. If they didn't get rid of me, Luka would have left. Like all of this stuff that they believe because some guy who lost his mind during COVID and was scared he was going to lose his job decided he was willing to do whatever it took to keep it, even if that meant, you know, attacking me personally and crafting the story that wasn't true, or, you know, allegedly outing someone who is, you know, gay and wanted to be in the closet still. Like, just think about that for a second. You know, that's the one thing I will say. So correcting that is important to me in some ways, because I feel like that does still bother me a little bit, that people believe this story to be true because someone wrote it, and the state of journalism is such that nobody will actually write a new article. They'll just take the old article and, well, the reason why he left the Mavs is because Luka Doncic didn't like him, blah, blah, blah. So the nice thing about Reddit, Twitter, having your own platform is you can, you know, tell your own version of what happened. The bad thing is that you can have people that should never have any interaction with you on a day-to-day basis are now impacting your life. Like, do I really care what's SLOV fan, Slovenian Luka fan? Like, if that guy came up to me and said something to me on the street, I'd be like, yo, bro, who are you? Why are you talking to me? But here he's on my phone and he has access to me for like a minute and a half of my day. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but, you know, I don't need this guy in my life. So that's a weakness that I think I definitely had a problem of when I was younger, and it probably still impacts me a little bit now. So, but it's also fun. Like, I think for me, I also enjoy interacting with our football fans, being somewhat I don't want to say controversial, but somewhat, I'm trying to get more notoriety or attention to my soccer club. So part of that is my approach to Twitter is part of that. It's not like, it's not completely contrived, but it's also somewhat contrived. Like, I bring my dog around with me everywhere because A, I love having my dog around, but B, it's also fun to have like, to beat a second division team and have your dog run on the pitch after the game is over. It's like, it's kind of fun. It made the news in Spain all over. So it got us some attention. So yeah, it is what it is. Twitter is, you guys are on Twitter. I mean, Jake, I wouldn't have even had contact with you if it wasn't for Twitter. So, it opens up some doors, and it also opens up your life to people that you probably shouldn't have access. You probably shouldn't allow inside your house or your life. So
it's very tough too, but you have to at least try to tailor your experience. Like I have no problem blocking somebody, and used to these guys would make fun of me. They're like, "Oh, you soft. You're just gonna." I'm like, "No, I just don't." If there's negative energy coming my way that's not going to make me feel better, not going to make me a better professional, I'll just block you.
Yeah, or mute. Sometimes I use the mute button so they don't even know that they're getting to you.
I kind of like them to know, but that's more of a personal thing for me.
You have to say really something to me like really, really rude to get blocked mostly. And also like for me, I don't look at my mentions that often anymore. And I'm kind of exclusively looking at the For You part versus the following, which is almost even more scary because now my For You feed is like completely tailored to this like thought bubble, this like bubble that I'm in. And it's kind of pushing you in one direction, but it's also kind of interesting because it's giving me stuff that I would never follow this guy. Now I'm seeing him and it's kind of interesting. And it's pretty smart. It knows what you're paying attention to and what you're not paying attention to. And it's constantly feeding you more of that. So on the one hand, it's a little dangerous. On the other hand, it's also pretty brilliant in some ways.
What's your favorite gambling movie?
Favorite gambling movie. California Split is a good one. It's a classic. That's probably my favorite one, I would say. Yeah, I mean, California Split. It's an old one, but it's a good one. Rounders is great. I probably watch Rounders like 10 to 15 times. Anytime Rounders is on TV, I stop and watch it.
Pay that man his money.
So good. Yeah, so many. I mean, it's completely unrealistic. Like, okay, if you spot a guy's tell, the first thing to do is tell him about it so he gets angry. No. First thing to do is to keep on exploiting that tell for as long as you possibly can. But whatever, they had to wrap up the movie in an hour and a half, just like you guys probably have to wrap up this movie at some point. So.
Maybe that should have been my question. Most realistic gambling movie?
I don't know if there are any really realistic gambling movies. I would say, Molly's Game is the opposite of that. But the story behind it is I think even more crazy than people realize. Like, so I don't know if you guys know what Molly's Game, but she talks about this game, but like this is like literally the biggest poker game in the world. I played in it a few times, with some of the most famous people in the world. Now that one is spun through the narrative that she was like this hero which she wasn't, but that's an most realistic. I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. There's not really that many good gambling movies. I thought about doing a gambling docu-series, or not a docu-series, but a series with drama, like an HBO style show with a friend of mine who's a writer, and we've spent some time thinking about that. But maybe when I have more time, I'll get into that because there are some interesting stories in gambling, and there is a real opportunity for that. There was like a cool HBO one called. It only lasted for a very short period of time because the horses sadly kept on dying. I forget what it was called. But it was on HBO, and it was about Hollywood Park. No, I'm being serious. Like, really, it was sad. Like the horses.
It is sad.
Really,
it's just.
Yeah. I think actually quite good.
I think horse racing should be eradicated. So it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Didn't you predict it would be gone in 15 years?
Yeah, and I think I only have about 5 years left on that, so I'm probably
too much money. The lobby is too big. I grew up around the horse racetrack. That was my first exposure to gambling. That's where I first started trying to like make money gambling with my dad. I was like 10 years old, but I wasn't, I was like sitting there with the math, doing like the buyer formulas and everything. But then I came to find out that it's a game that can't really be beat. But yeah, we owned horses at one point with some friends, or I've had some friends who own horses. The horses do know they're racing and they do want to win. It is interesting, but they're also, it's not safe and it's inhumane. And yeah, it probably should be banned. If you really care about animals, it's hard to argue that it's a net positive for that sort of thing.
So
kind of a somber note to end things on.
Well, I was going to say though, so they know they won, huh? Your claim
definitely.
is
like I had a friend who had a racehorse, and I mean, it knew the day of the. I mean, they're just like, I don't know, do you guys have pets or anything?
Sure.
Yeah.
yeah, like it's amazing how smart these animals are. Like my dog knows that I'm taking a shower at 7 to 8 p.m. at night, that like I'm going out somewhere. It's just not like a usual occurrence for me. So like the look on his face is like, oh, like when I was, dating for a while, I was like, interesting. Like the look he gives you, like a sad look, right? He knows that you're leaving. He understands when I close my computer that it's time to go to, that usually means I'm leaving to go somewhere else. So it's the sound of the computer closing will wake him up and want to go somewhere. Like they're really fucking smart. So like, yeah, the horses know for sure. Like this guy is like, he sits on the pitch without a leash, will not piss on the field ever. He goes like way on the perimeter of the field because he recognizes that these are where the human beings are walking. And the field is grass. It's like the perfect spot to go. He'll actually go pee on rocks. So yeah, but he's an abnormally smart dog. But yeah, he never runs on the pitch during practice until I give him the signal. When the players go for a water break, that's when he's allowed to run and do his laps. And then as soon as the water breaks over, he comes back and sits at my side. It's the animals are smart. So yeah, the horses definitely, maybe not every horse knows, maybe not, glue stick number 6 knows, but the rest of them knows.
That's a high.
Yeah.
That's a high.
Man, we can't thank you enough. This has been super, super interesting, fun,
Don't
and
informative.
informative.
In a bad way, guys. Don't take one clip and spin it into a negative. I know how you guys work. You're going to try to go viral at some point. So you're going to find the one bad thing I said.
No, we're just going to clip just the jet lag thing. The world needs to know.
Shadow GM, goes nuts on Donnie Nelson for the 5th time. Blah, blah, blah. By the way, why don't you guys get Donnie on the pod? Why don't you get his side of the story?
He hasn't really done much.
Yeah.
It's weird. I thought because he would appear on our station, I don't know, once a month at least. But I haven't heard much. I mean, probably some of that is the pending litigation stuff.
Perhaps. To be perfectly having some empathy for him. Like here's a guy who put his entire heart and soul into the franchise for a long period of time. I think very quickly along the way, he kind of saw me as an enemy for whatever reason. His influence was slowly waning. Maybe he thinks he handled himself perfectly correctly versus me. Maybe he did. I don't know. But from my perspective, it is, I do have a little bit of, up until I found out about the alleged Luton situation, I had a lot of honestly sadness for him, because for me, it wasn't a competition really. Like it would have been great to learn, work with him, learn some things that he could teach me. Maybe there's some things I could explain about it. It could have been a nice working relationship, but it really wasn't that, unfortunately. It was more combative. Or adversarial. So, but when I found out about the alleged, then my opinion of them changed a lot, because now I'm like, oh wow, depending on which side of the story you believe, he goes from just being someone who's very cutthroat and competitive to save his job to, this is depending on which side you believe. Yeah. So, I don't know. But
at the end of the day, you ended up with a football team instead of a futsal team. So
what a win, right? There you go. That's the way to end the pod.
Yeah, you came out okay.
Did Cato ever call you for comments or anything before he put that out?
15 minutes before he was about to publish the article, I
15
believe
minutes.
He sent me a text message, asked me if I want to comment on anything, and my response, I never did any media. So I was always just like, not interested. No, I had no idea what he was talking about. Didn't think it was going to be good for me, but didn't care either. I was on vacation at the time, so I was just like, and then the article came out and my phone blew up, and I was just like, oh, this doesn't seem good. But it was also kind of funny at the same time, because it was also around the time Mark was dabbling in that. Mark released a blog post that day on Iron Protocol crypto thing that ended up turning out to be a Ponzi scheme, and so it was like literally the same day. And I actually sent him a message like the night before. I was like, hey, you might want to get out of this Iron thing. It's a Ponzi. And he's like, no, it's not a Ponzi. And I'm just like, well, it wasn't created by a guy named Charles Ponzi, but Ponzi. So here's the math behind why it won't last. And then the article came out. So my response to him was like, hey, did you ever get out of Iron? Because it was like a pretty busy day for everybody, and he didn't. So that was kind of maybe, it's kind of funny.
Were you surprised he in the sale this year?
Yeah, very surprised. In fact, I talked to him about it afterwards, and I was just like, I never thought in a million years you would ever sell the club. And, but I'm sure he's explained his reasons for it. I'm not going to, they make sense to me. there's all kinds of, and I had lots of people like, oh, is it because of this? Is it because of that? Is it because of that? Is it because of this? And I'm just like, I just think he just wanted to, he understands what his strengths and weaknesses are, and he understands where the league is going. And, he's also been doing it for a long time, and why not, so but it did surprise me. Yeah. But I mean, if he's able to still maintain control of the team, seems like a pretty good deal for him, however long that lasts. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Enjoy. I'll definitely follow along and see what you guys are up to, and happy to help. Happy to provide some color. Hopefully, give you a little bit of entertainment. So,
well, we have a new favorite Spanish soccer team now.
We do.
I've just the name of the team. Let's
Castellon. No.
All right, there you go.
I literally
CD Castellon.
Yeah, that just means Club Deportivo. It's like Club Castellon, basically. But
I mean, of course I knew that.
That's like this weekend when they take on Sueta.
There you go, Sueta.
Thank you.
Which is like technically almost in Africa, but it's technically a part of Spain.
You don't say the AD, even though they are AD.
Exactly.
Sueta.
Yeah, we play them big match, and then the last week of the season is a battle between current number one and they're basically tied with us. So that'll be a big game. The winner of that likely gets promoted. So hopefully it'll be us.
How do they have a team in Ibiza?
They were in the second division last year.
How would you ever get anything done?
Yeah, I almost bought that team because I was like, I would rather live in Ibiza. It's a nice area. It could be fun.
It seems like you were primarily looking at clubs located near the water.
Exactly. I didn't want to buy a club that wasn't accessible via boat, basically. So that was I'm
going to buy a jersey. Haralabos
Voulgaris. I'll ship you guys some stuff.
Yes, Haralabos. Awesome. I will buy a jersey as well. That's our main focus now. This.
Let me fix the store first, because the store, I just had a meeting today. The store is a nightmare, so let me take care of that first, and then you can buy a kit. 'Cause I think the U.S. shipping is expensive. The navigation is not great. I only focused on the sports side for the first year, and now I'm trying to pay more attention to the business side because I feel like there's some stuff we can improve there. So
we feel you.
Give me some time.
Yeah, we know how that goes. All right, man. Well, maybe we do this again sometime.
The rest of your day, man.
See ya.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That's the great Haralabos.
I hit X.
Yeah, you're good.
That was awesome.
Do X now?
Yeah.
What a guy. Very interesting.
Yeah. And I, oddly enough, we talked to him for a long time, and I probably could talk to him for more, and he seemed very cool about it.
We pitched him on 30 minutes, and he went to 115. So that's always the best from a guest.
An hour 15?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that was great.
No, and I'm with you. I feel like we had another hour.
I feel like maybe we'll get him on again sometime. I actually will now follow a soccer team.
Sure.
That'll be the one. Why not?
Hey, guys, I kind of have to pee.
Okay.
I don't know if we were prepared for that or not.
Well, you know what that means.
The Dumzo.
We finally got a team. Pro team. Here in Austin, Texas. About damn time and right on time. Yeah, the great game of soccer is coming to our city, but the great chance that we have right now is to take Austin and give Austin to the rest of the world.
You're listening to The Dumb Zone.
No puppet. No puppet. No puppet.
Twice in one day.
A little something extra. How you feeling? You lighter? Lighter on your feet? You're not so full of urine? You just said I gotta go.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Sorry. I was trying to...
I know that was in real world 5 minutes ago, but in Jake, in this little magic world that we're in, it was like 30 seconds ago that you said that, and you already forgot. Yeah, and I didn't forget Haralabos was on, and he was awesome. Or Haralabos. You know what? Before Jake's assorted NFL notes, what if we just do a little bit of viewer mail? Couple birthdays out of the way, just kind of relax. We have Führer Hotmail. Hope this reaches you from Hotmail's hot stepsister, MSN.
MSN? That's a blast from the past.
He says, my dad is your fat doctor.
Oh, no.
What? I know.
You're in trouble.
He's really not that fat, but he's told me to lose weight, and
you give him the side eye.
He could lose weight himself, but he's now I feel like, oh my gosh. Anyway, he's 70 today, it says. He says, I did not wake him up in that special way. Don't worry, he respects HIPAA. I've seen you at his office, but was too nervous to approach an A-list celebrity like yourself.
Oh, my God.
P.S. No puppet. And how about a late ice cream flavor edition? Peach in the Middle East.
Okay, that's pretty good. I like that.
That's from A.J. Shorn.
I like that.
So, yeah, man,
You're in trouble.
I don't
You might need to...
I don't like when now I know somebody I'm talking about has family listening. I like to just be...
How about this? Why don't you have your parents, your wife, everyone you know, a lot of people you know's dads. Think that's better?
How about this? Your in-laws listen.
Yeah.
Who was not thrilled with me saying it would be weird to stay over there.
We just got to press on, boys.
Yeah.
And I've always thought, man, what if my radio career was where I grew up? And I thought, that'd be cool because then people would know I'm much better than them. I'm, all these a-holes in high school who thought that they were, like, look at them now. Look at the star of the football team who is working at the 7-Eleven. Look at how much better I am than you. But I guess what you guys say here is valid. So
I mean, I will tell you that I've been out before. It was actually at my wife's reunion, like 10-year reunion, and predictably, I'm a couple classes ahead of her, or 3. There were a couple guys there that were a couple ahead of me, so they're playing in the real young leagues now. And they were not, I mean, they were just there. They didn't, why would you show up? It was at a bar, but why would you, knowing that that's like the reunion for the girls that were 6-7 years younger than you. I mean, I know why you would do it, but it looks weird. And they were real assholes to me. Probably brought a lot of it on myself.
In high school?
Yeah. Yeah, because they were the dudes who would do the rub-a-tain on your face.
But how were they when they saw you 10 years later?
It was awesome.
Stoked?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, Jake.
I listen every day, man.
Like, yeah, but in Jake's mind, cool. He was like, if I ever see them in person again, I'm going to tell them what's up. Tell them how much they hurt me. And then at this reunion, they're like, oh, my God.
I might have if I wasn't with my wife. But they cut her off at the pass. Like, it never got to that point. Like, they were so nice. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like, you remember when you guys were, like, making my life hell for an entire season? But there's also the downside, which is what Blake's talking about. You think I want... My mom's going to hear what I'm saying right now. Like, if I use the word... no, I'm not going to do it.
Why does she listen? This isn't for her?
I don't know.
Wants to check in on her son.
I personally think that the Dumb Zone is for everyone. But if Dan is more of a...
I'm just saying,
he's trying to redline the podcast like a post-World War I neighborhood for black people.
If your daughters did a podcast, you would listen. It wouldn't be for you.
No, in fact, that's a bad bit I've wanted to bring up for a while. Jeff Pearlman on Twitter. Number one, you might already just say, okay, bad bit.
Fantastic writer. Bad bit.
He tweeted out, hey, could you listen to my daughter's college radio show? Here's the link.
Yeah, there's a difference between listen and blast out the link. Like, you could just listen and be like, oh.
Yes, I've tuned into my daughter's...
Isn't funny.
I've tuned into my daughter's college radio show, and she didn't want me to, like, know when it was on, and she didn't tell me about it the first year, as you know, because And I'm all for that because, well, I don't, she's like, I don't want you to hear me figuring things out.
Of course.
And I think that would be that's bad for them. It's kind of like now, I've always talked about podcasting with you when you started it. Because I think you and TC got good. But I always think it's a really weird thing because no one heard me doing college broadcasting. Barely anyone heard me when I was in Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah.
You're getting your reps, but now, let's say it's someone who works at the ticket, like in a Weekend Guy or something, and they follow in your footsteps and say, I'm going to do a podcast now, because just being on the ticket is even a Weekend Guy, you're going to have some higher level of notoriety
exposure
that anyone else would. You're going to get 1,000 followers right away on Twitter. But now people are listening to the worst, and of course you're going to suck.
Yep.
You should. You've got to learn things. And do you want to promote? Like if you're on a Weekend Guy on the ticket who doesn't have any broadcast experience, do you want to blast out, hey, tune into my podcast? Because it's almost like the restaurant that's not ready for opening, and you say, hey, come in. You might get one shot. And if this thing sucks, I'm not going back to that restaurant.
Yeah, TC makes fun of me because I think I fish story how many episodes we did that we didn't ever publish. But I swear it was 10 or so. And then after that, I think I've probably said before it was more, and maybe it's even less than 10. But after that, when we started doing it regularly, nobody knew we didn't promote it at all. The only time people started listening to our podcast is when Bob and Dan became obsessed with the GBL Fantasy Draft, which is where Space is super gay and Barbra Streisand is a C. And you guys played it on the air, and then we got that was like, we were way into it by that point. We weren't promoting it no one heard it.
Yeah.
Like, it was terrible.
And
absolutely terrible.
So it blew up because of me.
Yeah. Like everything in my life, I owe it to
But I loved when you guys broke down the GBL fantasy draft.
We would go for
who wants this?
We would go for 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours on just on everybody's
like
guest.
Great, like we're looking at.
It was awesome.
Cade Williams or something. I'm like, no, this guy's a round 3 pick.
Hey Dan, my buddy Jorge Martinez has a birthday, Feb 6. Is that today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Crushed it.
His leaders are Tuba Girl and France Girl. Sorry I didn't include a picture of my wife. She just squirted out a baby. Could Jake give a ruling on his name?
Sure.
Kai. Kai.
Love it.
Got to be careful because I have a very close friend of this show with a son named Kai. I think it sounds cool. Like I feel like you need to surf.
Is this based on the
guy
who smashed
guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. But it just sounds like a very cool name. Like I would have not survived being named Kai.
He says more video guy laughing in the background.
We'll do what we can.
From Dustin in Lucas, DF number 404.
Okay.
I do like your bit, Blake, that
Thank
people
you.
can identify themselves in that way now.
Thank you, Nima.
However, what if they're at number 5,500 and then we went down a little bit to 54.95 and then, I
don't know.
Can we have more than one same number? That means we just have to keep adding.
Yeah.
Right? We got to stop going down.
No one can leave.
He says, P.S. I Venmo'd the DZ account $20 to make sure this would get read live to tape.
Okay. Pizza Friday.
That'll work.
My name is Skip Lights, Day 2, DF. As I write this, it is my birthday. He says some stuff about his inferior Outlook email. When I was out celebrating tonight, I met a dumb F in the wild in San Antonio. We talked about buying a remote to be able to smoke with Jake.
Smoke a cigarette?
Like a analog old school cigarette?
Her name is Black Candace. I think from the compound. Did we have somebody named Candace who, you guys who see color, named Black Candace?
If you're going to ask me about what I remember from the late night, overnight compound from this year, night 1, I can help you. Night 2, I got nothing.
We thought 690 would be too little, so we'd like to ask other DFs to join together to get a South Texas remote. Picture attached. Anyway, wait, Skip Lights, that's his name. A couple other emails that are not birthdays. Sports Führer, I am your Singaporean listener.
There you go.
Geographically speaking, I must be the most isolated DZer in the world. I wanted to send a photo from Singapore's 9/11 memorial.
Way.
But it turns out we don't have one.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's from Jake Moon.
You on the moon?
Oh, here's one titled Subject Line Bad Bit. Hi, Uncle Hotmail, Cousin Gmail, and Blake. D2 DF here. I guess I was too lazy or slow. Last week, my wife was undergoing a C-section for the birth of our third child. As I'm sitting in the operating room waiting for the procedure to begin, the surgeon was making small talk.
Hate it.
Just prior to beginning the surgery, he states, in the proper tone, he said, as Dak Prescott says, here we go.
Yeah.
And then he starts cutting.
Yeah.
Of course, now I will remember fourth-round pick Dak Prescott's cadence every time I think of that morning. Should I advise him that he's permanently impacted my memories of my daughter's birth?
Kid's never getting out of the first round.
I was trying to think of an interception joke.
It's from Tom.
Yeah.
Couldn't come, yeah.
Baby flies out from the C-section and somebody else catches it.
Yeah.
It's not the doctor.
And my final email is from Dan Vollendorf. Oh, by the way, have you assembled your funny comments yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
They're still pouring in.
What are you looking for? Funny comments on the Apple Podcast?
Yeah, and I don't act like this was my idea, but someone recommended like a...
I know another podcast that does it, so that's why I felt bad about it, but...
Oh, okay.
I think we can still do it.
Just
they're in the trust.
Reviewing 5-star reviews.
I know another podcast who had Haralabos on, too, so we're allowed to do things that others have done. We'll do it better.
You said it was like my thing or my bit.
I actually believe...
Oh, you brought it up the other day.
I actually believe
I don't
that
want to take credit for it.
To my knowledge, that there's only one radio station in the history of the world that has read birthdays.
You know what I've always said?
Don't you smirk and look away and avoid the...
You know what I've always said? If you steal from me, you've stolen twice.
Yep.
You know why I said that? Because I stole it from Kid Craddock,
Okay.
who used to say that as well. It covers you. You're allowed to steal stuff.
Sure.
Anyway, this subject line, it's Dan Vollendorf. Give the people what they want. I'm a Gunnison, Colorado DZ subby. I'm writing because I think a lot of your listeners feel like we're getting cock-teased a bit.
Uh-oh.
I know you're not going to go bag on the ticket. I assume the majority of your subscribers want to know what happened that led you to leaving. I know your contract was up and you couldn't come to an agreement on a new one, etc. But I'm sure there was a serious effort made by others who work there to get you to stay. We'd like to hear about all of that. And if this has been worth it. Who and what drove you to the decisions you made? What, if any, regrets you have?
None.
What the other expatriates of the ticket are saying, who has supported you, etc.
Forthcoming.
We will?
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably go a little harder than I will, but I definitely want to. I'm down to talk about it. Got to give the people what they want, as Blake said. Spring break week. I think everyone's is about the same, right? It's like March 11th, March 13th, something in there.
March 11th is what we're targeting right now for a week of
At least 3. I mean,
vacation time.
4, maybe 3.
What should I do for France? Do I want to get as many days as I can, I guess. Should I leave like the Thursday night prior? Like, what would you do?
Well, you should probably listen to Haralabos. Take a night flight.
Yeah, you got it. Well, you have to take a night flight.
Oh, you have to?
Pretty much every European flight. I think everyone I've ever been on has been at night.
Okay. And so try to sleep on the plane. Yeah, I guess.
You have to plan it out.
If you were going overseas now, like, what would you? Because it feels like this shouldn't be I need some buffer time. You don't go over there very often.
So you could leave on. You're not going to do the show the Friday before.
Well, I'm just saying, but maybe
I would leave
that
that Friday night.
Okay, do the show. Leave that night,
and then. I mean, you could fly home Saturday night. You're going to be fucking whipped. I've been in those positions before, and it's a weird feeling. And that's not even that long of a flight. But your body will be doing things. If you've never taken it's probably, an 8-hour flight? It's not the end of the world. You've been to Hawaii. Although they break that up with LAX to Hawaii.
Is that worth it to only go for 7 days? I'm just thinking,
most people don't.
Should I try and make it 10? Should I try and extend it a little bit? And I could, do the show there with you, couldn't I?
You could. Let's see, 7.
Because they do have an AT&T, some kind of a data thing. If you pay $10 a day, you can.
Yeah, you could do Monday, Tuesday there, and then fly back Tuesday night. Have business Wednesday to rest.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 9-hour flight, which is still not that bad.
What's the longest flight you've been on?
Hong Kong, which I think was like 14 hours, 15 hours. Let me check.
I do remember the Hawaii one was quite long.
16 hours to Hong Kong.
Jeez. Oh, wow.
From LAX. So you got to fly to LAX, and then that flight might have left at midnight. It's very...
I'm just interested in Haralabos saying he hasn't had jet lag in 10 years.
Yeah, so...
And I want to see if I can avoid it.
For the most part, people don't go to Europe for 6 days, even 7 days. I mean, it's expensive, So, I mean, usually the way we would do it was...
Like expensive to be there or just the travel to get there?
You're paying so much money that it's like, I kind of want to get the most out of this, on the flight. What we would usually do was, okay, so there was a week that I would be off, and the preceding week, we would fly out that Wednesday night. So sometimes I would even fly out, Tuesday night, but I wouldn't take 2 full weeks off. Like I would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, fly out that night, and then that gives us a weekend built in on the front end, a full week, and then a day on the back end of Saturday to get home. And now you're there for like 10 days. And that feels a little more worth
that feels like
the
you
juice
need
worth
that.
the squeeze, yeah.
My wife yesterday was like, because I want to do some other things. Or where does she want to go? Amsterdam was one of the places. And if she thought I was going to argue about that...
It's a special place.
I think it was because... she said it was because of... we saw it on Atlanta, and it looked cool.
Yeah.
When Ern was in Amsterdam.
I think they've changed it up a little bit. Like, where now in the district, you can't... they don't have them... the curtains closed, I'm pretty sure. Like, the way that... Do you remember
the red light district?
Do you remember when they had pet stores at the mall?
Yeah.
And you could just see behind, they're in a little compartment, it's glass, and you're like, oh, that one's cute. When I went there, you walk down the streets of it, and there's just women in little, I don't know, pod type things.
Naked?
No, but lingerie. Showing off that hey, this is what you're getting with me. And it was just shopping. And you just walk by and somebody would
For a hooker?
Yeah, I mean, when I hear the word hooker, I think of the streets. These are
a call girl,
escorts. These are
escort.
top looking women.
What are we talking about monetarily?
I don't know. I was not single. I was with woman. So I honestly don't know what it is.
If you would like to pay for Dan's escort at Venmo,
on
Venmo at the Dumb Zone, Specify what the money is for, and we'll get Dan hooked up.
That's probably the most stoned I've ever been in my life. We went to this cafe in there, and it was actually the cafe that's featured in Ocean's 12. There's like a pot scene in Amsterdam there, and there was a cat. It's like one of these old hippie type tea and coffee shops, but they sold pot. And you're just right there at the bar. It's a pot bar. I mean, they bring you over. There is an actual bar. They don't sell alcohol, but you get a tea. They roll it up for you, or they'll give you a pipe or whatever. And there was this cat when we walked in, and I thought it was fake. And then I got like, we both were like, we're in Amsterdam, whatever. And then I turned around and I saw the cat moving after I was like maybe 40 minutes into space mode, and I'm like, oh, like I'm like hallucinating,
This is great stuff.
I got so paranoid that I leaned over to my wife and I'm like, the guy next to me is planning to blow this place up. She's like, what? I'm like, we gotta go right now. It's a great place, and I don't think it can't be far from Paris.
Are you able to get stuff and are they searching your cavities on the way back, or what?
I've never played the international game, so I will leave that.
What about within Europe though?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I do remember
because, from what I understand, these are very small countries.
Yeah.
Like going to Arkansas would be going to a whole different country. Do you go through a customs every time you got to travel to?
We did it. Yeah, I think so.
You do?
I think so, if I recall correctly. And I also remember that when we left Amsterdam, I think we were headed to Germany, and I didn't bring anything with me. But I remember them being like, hey, wake up,
Time to search everything?
Yeah, like you left Amsterdam? Because there's no search when you get on the train.
Okay, you went train.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did see it's a 4-hour train to Amsterdam from Paris, or pretty quick flight, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was Amsterdam. I can't remember. But
the trains are awesome, though, because you're the European countryside,
Uh-huh.
And it's cool. They have good food. You get wine, whatever. They're comfortable. It's not like being on the subway or something. Anyways, we got way sidetracked. But that's what we do here.
That's right. Want to switch up?
It's time for a Dumb Zone Interstitial. Gotta keep them separated.
What's next?
I don't know. I don't know if we have time to do football and news.
I think I'm with you.
We've been going along. We did a lot of sports today.
Okay.
So what do you think?
Here's Jake with the Dumb
So you seem to be saying.
News.
I don't exactly know why Shaq has always had such interesting ties to the North Texas area. Remember we were talking about last week the deal where he bought a family at like Grapevine Ford. He came in and bought a family a new van or SUV or something, just paid cash. It just seems like he's around here a lot, doesn't it?
Yes.
I don't really know. Maybe he had a house here at some point, but I've never thought of him as living here. Well, in coordination with the Dallas County Sheriff's Office this Saturday, licensed deputy Shaquille O'Neal will sponsor a gun buyback event.
He's a licensed deputy in Dallas?
I think he's just a licensed deputy in general. Somewhere. You don't remember that whole bit where he was like a cop for...
Kind of.
This was in...
That feels like something you shouldn't be able to just give to anybody.
It's kind of like a degree, like the honorary.
Okay.
I think so.
That doesn't mean anything?
Right. He can't pull you over. I don't think.
Can't do a citizen's arrest?
So owners who give handguns will receive a $100 gift card. Long gun owners will be given $125 gift cards.
That's it?
Yeah.
To what?
To give your gun back.
No, I mean, where's the gift card?
It doesn't say.
To the gun store.
To Knives R Us.
Yeah, why would people do that if you could make more money selling your gun?
I think the logic might be, and I've never really understood it, the logic might be that there are people that are just like, I don't really want this gun out there anymore. Like, I liked it for a long time, but now I'm at the point where I kind of just, I don't want to sell it. I want there to be less guns. And I don't have the ability to melt it, but the buyback program does.
Do you have a gun safe? Because you have a gun, right?
Yeah, I do, and I don't.
We're going to have to take care of that.
We might. It's just kind of an interesting thing because...
Got kids now, bro.
Yeah, if I had a handgun, I would definitely lock it up.
Oh, what is it, like a musket?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. As an intruder enters, I have to pack in the gunpowder. No, I mean...
Oh, speaking of intruder, you know what we got to talk about?
What?
That documentary.
Yeah.
Have you seen it all?
I'm almost done.
What's it called? American Nightmare?
Yeah. I described it poorly the other day. And I'll tell you what. Everybody said it was like Gone Girl. It kind of is. But in Gone Girl, the girl actually was trying to, like, blackmail her husband. Like, he had cheated on her, and so she was going to get back at him by kind of trying to frame him for murder, and then she disappears, and all this weird stuff happens. Like, that's what people kept saying. It's like Gone Girl. It's like Gone Girl.
Well, the police department there said it.
I know, but what I'm saying is that...
And that was a huge, huge error.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not like Gone Girl?
It's kind of like Gone Girl in that she disappears and comes back.
Oh.
But it's not like Gone Girl in that she didn't plan her own disappearance.
So you haven't watched any?
No.
It's worth
okay,
it.
but that's what they say
I know.
allegedly.
And that's how you guys sold it to me.
That's how.
Well, dude, you got to watch it seriously.
Well,
it's insane.
What
it's
do you
also,
mean?
It's also
if it's
very
not like
depressing.
the Gillian Flynn novel of 2013, then I don't want to read it or watch it.
Oh my god,
dude, it's really good. How about do something that we do?
It's
like
also terrifying.
Anything that we do on the show, like one thing, be a part of.
I thought the whole bit was you don't watch it and you guys explain it to me, and I can represent a part of the audience that hasn't seen
Damn
it.
it!
He's got you.
Damn it!
What a solid response.
It really is. That's excellent, Blake.
Well, I stole it from you.
We've taught him too much.
You've probably stolen it from someone else.
No, that might be an original.
This Valentine's Day, the Fort Worth Zoo has a perfect option for people who think love stinks.
The skunk something.
You would never guess this. You know how people used to like buy a star?
Yes.
Star registry. I think I've had somebody like give me one of those before as a gift. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Okay. This Valentine's Day, for $10, they will symbolically dedicate a pound of zoo poo in the name of whoever you would like.
Okay.
Presumably your ex.
Will they put it in a bag and
mail it to them?
Put it on their doorstep and light it on fire?
You ever do that?
No.
I didn't either.
Always heard of it.
Yeah. Shockingly, I have not done that.
Yeah, to me, it was just like... Because I knew a guy who pooed in a kid's shoe and got in trouble for it.
How old?
Oh, either junior high school or high school.
Okay.
But I was around when he was doing it, and I couldn't believe that. Like, I just couldn't do that. I couldn't poo in a bag.
I've done it in a cup.
You pooed in a cup?
Yeah. In a car.
Oh, for the two girls thing?
No. In a moving car.
In a cup?
Why? Because they wouldn't stop?
We were driving home from New Orleans, and we were in like a monsoon. Like, you couldn't even see in front of you. And we were in the kind of like there was.
This guy has gone number 2 everywhere.
Yeah.
Planes.
Yeah.
Just wait. He's going to tell us he threw the cup at another car.
No, but we did immediately just like throw it out.
Somebody's got to pick that up.
Are we talking about a Fuzzy's cup or like a little...
It was like a large drink from a fast food restaurant.
Okay, that's pretty big.
Yeah. But it was also paper, you know? I'm like the Fuzzy's cup, which is plastic.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
He just chunks it outside.
There's like 4 other dudes in the car.
Jeez. Man. Why are men disgusting?
We just grow up thinking poop is funny.
Yeah, and I don't even
Yeah,
really
but that
think it's.
wasn't a-
I don't even really think it's funny. I just was like, I have to go. I have to go.
And it's not like you could pull over and
No.
run out into the woods.
No.
Because it's
not an option.
There's a soon.
Mm-hmm.
R.I.P. to country singer Toby Keith.
Yeah, I saw that this morning.
Yeah. I listened to some Toby Keith on the way over here.
Did you?
What do we got?
He's got your favorite.
Yeah, you love the boot in your ass song.
Oh, he's the boot in your ass guy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He's what is it? Whiskey for my men, beer for my horses. That was a popular one.
I love this bar.
I love this
That was the
bar.
Stars' victory song back in the like early aught era, right?
I recall.
Yeah.
He
Red
turned
Solo
into
Cup.
Yeah, he turned into bit pop.
Oh, he's
country
Red
guy.
Solo Cup guy?
Yeah.
Okay, I
which
know
is
that.
songs like that. But he,
How do you like beer now?
I thought that was a pretty good one.
Shoot a bit of cowboy.
That's another good one. He's got
Okay,
he's got
he's got
some
a
hits. Yeah, he's got some hits.
Were you crying when you were driving?
No.
Some hits and some hot opinions.
Oh my, yeah.
What does that mean?
He knew his audience and he catered to it.
Yeah.
Political?
Yeah, he was really into like universal basic income.
I think he big proponent of the Green New Deal too.
Yes, I remember him signing off on that. It's actually probably not going to pass now that he's passed.
Stomach cancer, I read.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that was a thing.
Pretty much anywhere can get cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
Slow that down.
I know your skin can, but
Yeah, that's a wild one.
it's not like
You
you're...
can get blood cancer.
For real?
I think so. Son of a bee.
Yeah,
blood
how do,
cancer.
how do you find that out?
It's because your blood's moving. It's like, can't get a hold of this guy.
No, but I'm just saying, how do you... It's like if you find a lump, you're like, oh, okay, there's some
Yeah.
cancer. But how do you, doctor... My perfectly normal-sized doctor, he looks good,
Cherubic at best.
has put his digit into my backside.
Oh.
Because I guess
Look out that window.
you can feel something in there to or at least he tells me that he can determine if there's some cancer growing around up there. I always wonder about that too.
It's kind of a feel thing.
Yeah, so he checks my, does that, and then what if the cancer starts growing the day after I leave his office? Or the colonoscopy. I've gotten a colonoscopy, and they say, well, you don't need another one for 5 years. What if cancer starts growing tomorrow?
Right.
Like, I feel like I should
4
get one
years.
every 2 weeks or so.
Just because you love it.
Yeah, I bet you'd like that.
What are you guys saying? Not gay, man.
Okay, we'll do one final one. I'll hold some of this audio for next time.
No, I do it all now.
No.
Why? We're not doing a show tomorrow.
Yeah, but we're doing one Thursday.
Oh.
It's kind of not really, doesn't really fit with the news anyways.
Look at
You know what?
teasing.
F it. I'm going to play one thing for you real quick. And it's not even the thing that I was originally going to play. But I'll start by telling you about Patrick Mahomes Sr. You probably saw this in the news. He was pulled over Saturday night out in Tyler, where they are from. And it was about 8 p.m. Officers notice a car moving slower than the rest of traffic, runs the registration. His registration had been expired since September of 2022, I believe. Which is
Damn.
to be honest with you, though, like, I'm way behind. This is the longest I've never gone more than a month, and I'm like 5 months out right now. It's just bad. I got my car inspected, but I haven't found a time where I can actually get down to the courthouse.
Don't you mail it?
If you're on time.
If you're on time.
Ah.
If you get even like a day past, you can't. So his registration's been out for almost 2 years. He had an open container, an open tall boy. It was Tall Boy Saturday for Patrick Mahomes Sr. So he's 53 years old. Admitted to drinking a few beers while watching a game at the bar. Then they saw the open 16-ounce can of the Rocky Top. And he did a field sobriety test. He failed that. He had one DWI charge in South Dakota in 2008. He had a second one in 2018. He served 40 days in county jail on weekends.
Man, I would think that's enough.
Yeah.
To scare you straight, like, okay.
But that's not how it works, though, man. It's you're an addict. So to scare you straight basically means like you need to go get you're straight enough to go get help.
No, straight enough to get Uber.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But I do know also sometimes there's a
ego.
Well, or just a boy. This will really get me in trouble with the wife. If she has to drive me to go get my car tomorrow morning.
That's true.
That's what I'd always wonder about with the kids. Like you try to say.
Call me.
Yeah, look, it's okay. Look, don't call your mom. I know she'd get upset about I won't tell anyone if anything ever happens. But, the human nature, you would just be worried about that. I've always been an admirer of yours that you are Uber guy, man.
I've spent a lot of money.
You kind of plan ahead.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but you also will leave your car somewhere. Yeah.
I've done it.
And I would think
dozens and dozens of times. Yeah, I mean, if I didn't grow up in the Uber era, I'm sure I would have made some way more terrible decisions. Not to say I've never made any on that front, but I would have made way more. I mean, dude, the weird thing is like, as everybody says, I can remember like being in the car with like, for sure, my grandfather who lived out in the country. People had beer in the car,
dude.
That's just what you did.
I think every now and again on Twitter there will be like a thing that goes viral. Have you seen like it's a 1985 news clip from Texas? Maybe it's from Fort Worth, where the old farmer is in his truck and he's got a beer, and they were just saying like they were just trying to stop open container.
Yeah.
And he's like, out of my dead hand, like I'm an American. I'm going to, they're going to tell me I can't drive around with this.
Yeah. So,
it wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't. As far as Mahomes Sr. goes, you've seen videos of him throughout the playoffs where he's like out the tailgate, shotgunning cold ones with fans. Like, definitely gets down.
He goes pretty hard for his age.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. He's 53. He looks 65.
He does. Oh, okay. I thought he was older than 53.
That's the thing. He's not really that old.
Right.
Like, I know a bunch of early 50s guys who, I mean, think about it this way. Pull up a picture of Patrick Mahomes Sr. and then understand that he's the same age as Corby.
Another guy who parties pretty hard.
He does, but he takes care of himself outside of that pretty well. So you got to try to balance it out. All right, there's your news.
What do you think he gets funneled?
I'm fascinated by that sort of stuff.
So, if you made $50 million a year, what do you send to Chappie?
Well, I mean, I got to divvy it. I mean, I think his parents are divorced too, so similar situation. But I got to divvy it up. I think you probably do this.
Like, what's enough,
You let them each pick a house in a reasonable range. $1 million, $1.5 million. You buy it cash. Although we've since learned from Michael Irvin that's not the smartest move. I just don't want to be dealing with it. Just pay off their houses. And then you come up with some sort of, you figure out what you want your lifestyle to be, and then you kind of give them some sort of monthly stipend. Maybe it's not much. Like, you're still going to have to work.
Yeah, who gets, yeah.
$50 million is not enough for you to be like, I'm going to give each of my parents $10 million, right away. Or a year, however you want to do it. That's not going to happen.
And then the question is, well, how close of a relation do I get to get Jake's monthly stipend? Like, because now you got parents, you got a brother for sure. Okay. What about your favorite uncle? Is he going to be like, oh, wait, you're leaving me out of this? Or
I'll tell you what, you guys can come to a barbecue at my house once a year.
Money does just cost. I'm glad I don't make $50 million a year.
No problems.
All the trouble we'd have.
There's your news. Although I am going to play you guys a small piece of audio here. because I'll forget by Thursday.
And subscribe.
So this is outside of the news?
Yeah.
Is this the announcer getting mad at his crew?
Just bring it up during the show meeting.
I'd rather just hold it over your head for the next couple weeks.
What is he talking about?
We had a piece of audio, and we forgot to play it that day, and then something came up the next day, and now at the end of every show, because he doesn't bring it up in the meeting, as a producer would do, to remind us, like, hey, we got this good audio of this announcer, this college basketball guy.
Are you officially our producer?
I don't know.
See, that's the thing. That we got a Haralabos Mavs situation here where there's no defined roles, and
I mean, hell, I booked the guest today.
You did.
I'm just kidding.
I think
just bring it up when we're talking about when someone says, "What do we have today?"
Which we generally do before the show.
Way more fun.
And you think of something we have. No, I thought this commercial was hilarious, and it might have been my state on the trip, but I think brands in general are way more okay being like sexy now, which has always been the case in Europe or something like that. But this is a KFC commercial for their new fries.
You're looking to smash that bowl of fries, potatoes, cheese, and bacon.
Okay, I'm going to play that again for you.
Yes, you wouldn't have.
Are you looking to smash?
Yeah.
This is how the kids talk about doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they leave just enough hang time in there
to think about doing it.
You're looking to smash that bowl of fries, potatoes, cheese, and bacon. The new smashed potato bowl is just $3.49. Only at KFC.
They got like kind of porny dance music playing there. Like I kind of couldn't believe that they got away with that.
Yeah.
Look at it smash.
And then once he describes what you will be smashing, now you're thinking of an American Pie situation where you're actually having sex with this.
Stick my junk in this thing of fries?
Yeah.
And that seems way worse than a pie.
And there's always bacon, right?
Yeah, just let it go.
Bacon
won the war against McDowell.
We don't have sex with every piece of bacon. Can't I just have sex with the potato?
Ugh.
Got to add the bacon?
You definitely want a little sour cream in there, you know?
Well, you put it in there.
The Dumb Zone presents Today in History.
This is the longest podcast of my life.
How long have we been going?
About 2:15.
Oh, okay. Want me to hustle through this then?
Do whatever you want.
Whoa. Can I say whatever I want? So it's Tuesday, February 6th. On this day in 1935, Monopoly goes on sale for the first time, the board game. Were you guys Monopoly guys?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. I used to play it on my Sega Genesis.
That's interesting. Just because it was so you never played it as a board game?
I did too, yeah.
This was a big thing, family get-togethers. Oh, we'll pull out the,
Yeah, not until
cousins come over.
Yeah, much older. But, yeah, it was fun.
On the same day in 2013, Hasbro announced that Monopoly fans voted online to add a token to the board game which would replace the iron. The iron.
Don't make us guess what it is.
What won the vote? Oh, why do you think I'm doing that?
What were the originals?
You had the guy with the monocle.
Actually doesn't have a monocle.
Oh. The rich guy.
Pretty
you had
sure.
He wasn't a token.
Oh. I thought you had a rich guy that was a token.
You had a car. You had a top hat. You had a wheelbarrow.
This one does have a monocle, but originally he didn't.
Did I already say a dog? You had a cat.
Did the
iron?
Did it replace the thimble?
Ooh, thimble. No, the iron was replaced by...
Okay, by thimble?
No, it was replaced by a cat. So there wasn't originally a cat.
Okay.
A ragdoll cat.
That's pretty cool.
You going to bring the ragdoll cat over one day?
I'd love to, but I don't know how Kip and Bodie would feel about that.
Isn't that what... It has to be a video day.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to, but I think there could be potential chaos.
Let's see.
If you're willing to sign a waiver.
On this day in 1987, President Reagan became the oldest U.S. president in history, as he did every year on this day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this was his last day doing that. 76 years old. The previous high was Eisenhower at the age of 70. And now what are we at? What's Biden?
80 and 77?
Biden's 80?
I thought he was.
Okay, I don't know. Why are you yelling at me?
It's so funny, even though like the 80s were 40 years ago, it's so funny to me to imagine that we had a president like in the late 80s dealing with like the AIDS crisis who grew up when people still rode horses in some parts of the country for transportation. Like I remember when I met my great-grandmother, I could not comprehend how old she was. Like she was born in like either the late 1800s or 1900s. 19-aughts. I'm like, oh God, it's just... They were building the railroad when you were born. And now you're here. This must be weird for you.
Well, and as technologically, exponentially, gets more advanced.
Yeah.
Like imagine what old Jake is going to be looking at.
I can't.
Your grandkids will have zero idea how to process that. On this day in 1998, Mary Kay Letourneau was sentenced to 7.5 years. She had violated probation by going to see her 14-year-old father of her baby. She was 36. He was 14.
So she was out on probation with the condition that she not go see.
And I think they caught him. Didn't they catch him like in a parking lot or something?
Car? Yeah, pretty sure.
Doing it.
Recently passed.
Yes. On this day in 2012, Linsanity started. Jeremy Lin scored a career-high 28 points in his first ever start when the Knicks beat the Jazz.
It's a fun time.
It really was.
Yeah. Do you remember when that reporter from ESPN got in trouble?
Probably fired, right? Like,
you think he was fired?
It was an article that said it was about the Knicks or somebody's the chink in the armor.
Yeah. And I do think,
and I don't.
When you read the article, it was kind of just an honest oversight.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And on this day in 2018, SpaceX had a new rocket blast off. Is that Elon's company?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it was on a route that would take it to the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. And the goal was that it was going to... It had a red sports car on board. And it was going to... That there's now a red sports car. Well, I don't know if it got there yet. I don't know how fast you get to...
The asteroid belt?
The asteroid belt. But they're going to have a red sports car flying around. So, like, in the future, somebody will sign, somebody will...
What a giant waste of time.
What is this? Birthdays today. Chris Humphries is 39.
Kardashian.
Former Dallas star Fabian Brunstrom is 39.
You're always talking him up to me. Like, this guy's going to be the next one.
I thought he was. He had 3 goals in his first game. And he finished with 19 career goals. How about that? Oddly enough, the singer Fabian is 81. Isn't that weird? Do you think he was named after? Do you think?
I mean, probably.
Blake's done.
Honestly.
Rick Astley is 58. Is that Rick Roll?
Yeah.
Okay. And then born on this day, we have Babe Ruth.
Was Bill O'Reilly really Rickrolled? Or am I falling for something?
Was this recent?
His explosion or whatever. What do you mean to play us out? That whole thing.
No.
That was just confusion over the teleprompter?
Yeah, with Sting. Here's Sting to play us out.
Okay.
But I do think I saw a very, very well done Rickroll recently at like a public thing. Like where people waited around to see something and then... But I don't have any more details on that. Dan, back to you. I'm hoping that's what this stupid asteroid does. Everyone looks up into the sky and Someone's just projected a global Rickroll.
Born on this day, we have Babe Ruth, we have Eva Braun, and Reagan, of course. And let's give you Rip Torn.
Oh, Jackass.
Dodgeball.
Jackass?
Isn't he? Isn't he out on, like, the boat?
I don't know. The Jackass 1?
Let's see. Yeah, the first one. Hey, don't challenge me on Jackass,
no, I shouldn't do that.
And that was Today in History.
He, like, fires a gun at the end of the movie. And somebody jumps off something. It's wacky.
I'm sorry, I don't remember that. Blake?
What should my title be?
That's for the fans to decide.
Yeah, that'll go well.
Adios, mofo.